Purdy out of the shotgun, drops a couple of steps, going to take a deep shot to Brandon Ayuk. It's deflected.
He caught!
Cousins, first read taken away. Left side, he throws. Wide open pitch!
From being able to make a play on that football.
That's where Sutton was so good last year in the red zone.
Nix evades the run. Nix the fake. Another fake, and he spins into the end zone.
They're going to get a free play. Rodgers is the master at it, and a touchdown by Lazard. Jones on the fake, pressure coming, and he's sacked by Parsons.
God, corner.
Motion man Hudson.
The throw caught. Hudson lost the ball. Looked like a touchdown. Instead, it's a turnover.
On the pocket. Gets away from Chenal, who's trying to get after him for a second time, but the ball is thrown to the end zone, and it's caught! On it to McCaffrey, right up the middle, and a stiff arm, McCaffrey for 6.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Extra Point. My name is Ben Cruz, and you guys might be wondering, why am I the person to start off this program? I'm typically the one to start off King with Cruz, but my co-host Isaiah Leon is officially on his way. He is going to be running a little bit late, so I'll be starting the show without him. We'll also see if Logan Antonio, our other co-host, will be coming on throughout tonight. But welcome everyone to another edition of Extra Points. We got a ton of stuff to get into for this show for tonight. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that you guys follow us on all of our social medias on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, on the IM6 and MI6 Sports Network. We are always specifically on there, and just to make sure that you guys, making sure that the content is getting out to you guys, and we want to make sure that everything is going smoothly. We do have one of our co-hosts now in, Isaiah Leon. Isaiah is typically one of the guys that typically runs this program. So Isaiah, welcome on to tonight's program. It's been a while since I feel like we've done one together, but it was only like a week or two ago. So there's a lot of stuff to get into for this overall show for tonight. Both of our teams are going to be playing each other this weekend, so that's going to be really exciting. I think last time we talked was the Patriots show that we did last week, where the Patriots are about to play the Jets. We did a show a week ago from today, I remember, because obviously the Patriots Jets was Thursday last week, and tomorrow is Thursday, so it's about a week ago from today. So we're going to get into pretty much all of the week 3 games, at least recapping them, and kind of at least a good glimpse of kind of what we've seen so far with the season. We're also going to talk about week 4. We're going to get into overall predictions and kind of see how that goes. And we're also going to talk about some other news around the league, including Bryce Young from the Carolina Panthers, as there's been a lot of turmoil currently with that team. And the Carolina Panthers got their first win, but it was not under Bryce Young. So that's obviously something to take a look at. James Gonzalez, my friend, if you are listening to us, I highly advise you to maybe close your ears after that overall debacle that happened from your team. Don't worry, my team's not really much better either, so it's okay. We live in the misery right now as is. But without further ado, I'm going to give it up to my co-host for tonight, Isaiah Leon. Isaiah, how are you doing, my friend? And I can't wait to get started for tonight.
Yeah, man. Ben, it's great to be on, man, and it's going to be a great show tonight. It's been a great NFL season thus far. Isn't it crazy that it felt like football just started and we are about to enter week 4, a whole month into the season. It just feels like the season's going by like that. And I can't wait to see what happens the rest of the way. I mean, we've got some interesting stuff, some stuff that is very shocking. Some stuff that's not really that surprising, but still, it's great to see. But before we do get started, I do want to, tomorrow is definitely going to be very difficult for me because I know this is a football show, but it's the A's last game in Oakland. I'll be working that game in Oakland tomorrow. I know that stadium has hosted the A's and the Raiders, so yeah, it's going to be very sad. That's why I know this is a football show, but I'm wearing my A's gear because it's the last time it's going to happen in Oakland, and I don't know what's my reaction is going to be because tonight I was literally sitting at a pizza shop and I was just looking through my old photos of my memories at the Coliseum, and I literally like started tearing up. Like that's how emotional it was. It's like if Fenway were to ever close for you, Ben, or or if TD Garden were to ever close, like that's how emotional it would be. Like that's how emotional I think it's gonna be for me tomorrow. It's gonna be crazy. That's for sure. But yeah, looking forward to this show and looking forward to the whirlwind that's gonna be Thursday.
Yeah, I'll make sure, for your sake, Isaiah, to watch your game tomorrow, the Rangers and Oakland A's game. For those that are interested, it starts at 3:37 p.m. Eastern time. It's 12:37 p.m. West Coast time where Isaiah is. But yeah, just an overall monumental type of day for a team that definitely deserves better. Obviously, the Fisher situation, and we could obviously talk about that for another show. But just want to say, yeah, I mean, that's obviously really tough. And if you guys actually want to see more of that stuff, make sure to join me and Nick Morgeson on my other program tomorrow night. Well, tomorrow morning, actually, for Hitting for the Cycle, aka our baseball show on Empty the Bench Network. And we're going to talk more about that type of stuff. So, Isaiah, if you want to take a look at that stuff, we'll premiere that episode on YouTube on Friday. But that's not why we're here tonight. We are here to talk some football as usual. And really quickly too, I know you're mentioning, Isaiah, how the season's going really, really fast. We don't really talk a lot of college football in this program, but man, college football is going to have some of the biggest games on Saturday, where we have Georgia, Alabama, and we also have why am I missing the other one? There's another massive big one. If you can get that one to me, I'd greatly appreciate it. But definitely Georgia, Alabama is Saturday night. So I can't wait for that. So that should be a lot of fun.
Ben, we also have next speaking of college football, next week we've got the rematch of the national championship game between Washington and Michigan. I know both teams are different, I get that, but still, that's still a big time showdown. And then I think the matchup that
I think it's Tennessee. Sorry to cut you off. I think it's Tennessee and Tennessee's playing somebody really big. That was the other big matchup. But also we have Louisville, Notre Dame, 15 against 11. That'll be a good one. Yeah. So we obviously don't have to predict those games, but like just for football's sake, man, we're gonna have a hell of a weekend. And can't wait for
it. How about the Colorado Baylor game before we get into our NFL?
My God.
Like, I know this is an NFL show, but we gotta talk about. I mean, that was one of the most legendary, insane endings I have ever seen in my entire life watching football. I mean, Colorado was this close to losing, not once, but twice. They were like this close to losing, and somehow, some way, they get out of it and end up winning the game. Like, I've never seen that before. A team that is this close to losing, ties it up on the Hail Mary, and then in overtime, they score the touchdown. Baylor is about to score. Like, Baylor is literally an inch from scoring a touchdown. All the guy just needs to do is move 1 inch further, and he scores the touchdown. And he fumbles the ball. I mean, what a play by Travis Hunter, but he fumbles the ball right as he's about to cross the goal line into the end zone, and it's a touchback. Like, that was one of the most insane endings of all time. And if you're a Colorado fan, I mean, you should be extremely happy because that vaulted you into contention for the Big 12. But if you're a Baylor fan, I mean, with their coach already being on the hot seat as it is before the game, yikes, that is not the ending you want.
Yeah, I mean, I thought once that guy dropped it from the Sanders pass, the previous play before he caught that, I was like, oh my God, like that would have been the worst way possible. Baylor definitely caught a break. They're about to pull this out. And then he was essentially had another chance, and he essentially went to the same exact area of where he threw the previous one, and it somehow worked out. I can't even imagine how Baylor just doesn't look at that and like, listen, they're probably going to try to do something like that again, and it literally bit them in the ass. Like the defensive coordinator definitely should get fired just for the sake of that. I mean, that's just absolutely ludicrous to think. But yeah, just college football, man. It never just doesn't entertain us. And I will say about the kickoff rule, I like how they keep the same kickoff rule that has been in the past. That's one thing I do think it's a lot better than it is for the NFL this year. But you know the NFL, they're trying to make their money. So, all right, let's get into the week 3 recap. We got to get things rolling here. So we're going to start with the Thursday night game with the Patriots and the Jets. Obviously, we talked about actually us two last week to preview it. And Isaiah, I predicted that the Patriots would lose, but I did not expect it to be an absolute massacre. The Patriots did not show up. It was basically the Jets game from the start. That was the first win against the Patriots since 2015 at MetLife Stadium. So, man, it was a long time coming for them. You've talked about for a while about Aaron Rodgers, how he's going to be the new savior, this and that from the New York Jets, and obviously what he had to go through last year. And I will say about Aaron Rodgers, as tough it was for the Patriots defense to get carved up, Aaron Rodgers, the first 2 weeks kind of felt like he was very rusty. He just wasn't kind of confident just yet. But in this game specifically, he was throwing everything. It felt like not just the Rodgers of a couple of years ago, but it felt like the vintage Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know if they're going to have this every single week for the New York Jets. But if they get at least a portion of this with the defense that the New York Jets have, you got to feel good if you're a New York Jets fan. But you also have to make sure about the Jets is this guy has to stay healthy. That's the only way that they could be able to have a overall great season is if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy. Because if he doesn't, then this whole entire season, just like last year, is the same exact repeat all over again. Not saying Tyrod Taylor can give them a couple more wins than maybe a guy like Zach Wilson or Mike White or whatever, but Aaron Rodgers is essentially their guy to save them from their drought that they've been accomplishing for so long. For the Patriots standpoint, it's a lot of the same crap right now offensively. They will be getting some of their guys back, I think, on the offensive line coming up this weekend against your Niners, Isaiah. But what was your overall reactions in this Thursday night, this previous game from week 3, the game we actually previewed on Patriots Preview last week?
Yeah, I think that my biggest 2 takeaways coming from this game was that the New York Jets announced to the world that they're Super Bowl contenders. Aaron Rodgers, if he plays the way that he did with that offense humming the way that it was, I mean, they carved up a Patriots defense that ranks in the top 5 in the NFL. I mean, this Patriots defense is not a joke. Like, they're really good defense, and for them to do it against, I know New England doesn't have like the weapons on offense. I get they don't have Brady, but still, this is a damn good defense. And for Aaron Rodgers to go in there at MetLife Stadium and just dice them up like that, it was just so impressive to watch. Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, even the tight ends were all involved. I mean, I think Al Michaels said on the broadcast that this was the combined from last year, this was the most amount of receptions that a Jets tight end had gotten at the tight end position, versus all of last year, which is crazy to think about because you literally have 17 games to go or in the NFL, and for your entire position group to only have the entire season to only have 5 receptions the entire season. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. The Jets offensively, they were rolling. Defensively, once the Jets got the lead, that's when the defense pinned their ears back and just got after Brissett. The Patriots' offensive line could not block whatsoever. They couldn't run the football. This is what we said, I think, when we were previewing the game, that if the Patriots cannot run the football, they cannot establish the running game, it's going to be a long game. Yeah, from start to finish. And that's what it was, because the Jets essentially forced Jacoby Brissett to be a pocket passer and to throw the football. And, he just didn't have time. He didn't have confidence, and the receivers sadly just weren't getting open. And I think that this also exposed the Patriots for their lack of weapons. Their guys just couldn't create any separation whatsoever. They couldn't create any dynamic plays whatsoever. It was just sad to watch for New England's offense, because once it got to like 17-3, Ben, it kind of essentially felt like it was over, to be honest with you.
I was essentially thinking it was over right from the jump, honestly, in this game. I mean, obviously 17-3, you can make a case for it, but I think right from the jump, the amount of missed tackles that they had defensively, and like I do appreciate, Isaiah, for you praising this defense, but now this is 2 weeks in a row where they've had to go against really good offenses, which is fair enough, but if the defense can't show up specifically, and that's supposed to be the kind of the backbone of the team to give any type of Patriot fans hope, with the offense specifically going to be kind of a up and down mystery every single week, the defense has to be a little bit better. As great as it has been overall as a whole, it has to be better, because you look at this overall game, and I talked about this on Kicking with Cruz actually on Monday night. The New York Jets as a team stats, Isaiah, they were 400 total yards to New England's 139. New England also turned the ball over, but obviously that was Ramondre Stevenson fumble during the point in time where the game basically was over. But the time of possession and the first downs, the Jets had 27 first downs. The Patriots had 11. But the time of possession was the massive difference. The Jets had 40 minutes compared to New England's 19 minutes and 56 seconds. That's essentially double the amount of time of possession, in which we talked about last week. Remember that the Patriots coming into that overall game was number 2 in time of possession, and against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, despite how he was looking the first 2 weeks, you would think if Aaron Rodgers was on his game, in which he was in this one, and the way the defense wasn't, tackling, and the offense was not given the time of possession with the way that they were running the football in the first couple of weeks, it was going to be a long game. And that's essentially kind of proved it kind of in this game from last week. So they obviously have to rebound against the Niners. They have to go cross country. And obviously, you guys are banged up. You guys obviously are coming back from really tough one. So it'll be interesting. We'll have to find out. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as this loss was. But, we're obviously got to kind of see specifically, too, about Drake May. Thankfully, he got a little bit of playing time at the end of this game. That was at least maybe a positive. I wish they obviously got the chance to score, because they actually had a chance to score right when it didn't really matter. But to just see that Drake May could lead them down for a little bit and have a touchdown, that would have been pretty cool. But it was over from the jump. Final score, Patriots 3, Jets 24. All right, we're going to go to the Sunday slates really. Yeah.
Before we get into the Sunday slate, let me add something about Drake May. If I am the Patriots, there's no way I would start him this season, because with the way the offensive line played and has been playing this entire season, this dude is going to get hurt if you put him behind that line. Like, that line was atrocious. Even when he was playing, when he did come in for his short series, which I was very excited to see. I thought he did some things good, and I thought that, he did hold on to the football a little bit too long. But I thought the main takeaway from when he played was that offensive line is so bad. I mean, he got smacked on a couple of pass plays. There was one, Ben, where I seriously thought that he got concussed where he just knocked back so hard. Yeah.
Are you talking about the one that the guy blindsided him and he didn't see it? He just got croaked? Yeah.
Oh my God. I thought he took a bad injury.
I told my brother, I'm like, this is exactly why he shouldn't be out there. And I think at that point in time in the game, they wanted to kind of see how he was, because I think this kind of throughout this time of year, they're going to probably play him at some point. I think, I know you're obviously saying they probably won't, but I think that they also kind of have to give a kind of a little glimpse, because you don't know if the offensive line is going to change just like that all of a sudden next year. Like, eventually, we're going to have to kind of figure things out a little bit. And I think with also May's mobility in terms of using the run too, I think that does maybe help a little bit compared to what Jacoby can definitely give as well too. All right, so we're going to go to the Week 3 Sunday slate games. We're going to start with the Chargers and the Steelers. The Steelers improved to 3-0, Isaiah. Who would have thought that? As they defeat the LA Chargers 20-10. The Chargers now go to 2-1, so it's still not awful for them. But I had the Steelers. I'm pretty sure I had them winning this game. And Justin Herbert coming into this game was a little bit limited, kind of banged up. He didn't finish this game, unfortunately. He had to leave, I believe, in the third quarter. But I gotta give props are due. The Steelers are playing a lot better football than I thought. They obviously, I thought with the overall quarterback situation, the controversy, Russell Wilson's been out at least for the first couple weeks, and Justin Fields just came in and he's done a solid job, I think, overall. I don't think anything crazy special, but it's really because of the defense. And the biggest thing about the Steelers that we've known Isaiah for so long is TJ Watt is the massive game breaker. When TJ Watt is on the field, the Steelers win football games. And when he doesn't, they tend to lose games. And it's been proven in the past. So, with the way that things are going around for Pittsburgh, and I don't know specifically if you. Oh, cool. We're actually going to be having another guest coming on as well here, by the way. So that's awesome to hear. But what do you think about this overall game? I thought all along, I did watch some of this game on CBS. This was one of the earlier slate games. The Chargers had a really hard time. I just think specifically with the weapons that they lost between Keenan Allen and a couple other guys, they're going to have a really hard time on the outside of finding guys that they can really rely on. And I think all in all, the Chargers are going to have to rely a ton on their running game. And I just don't know if that's a lot specifically for a guy like Justin Herbert. Is to essentially, I know Jim Harbaugh obviously is there. He's done a lot for him, and they love to run the football. But Justin Herbert's also a passer too. So I just don't know specifically if that fit's going to be consistent enough, for that Chargers type of team. I know they're obviously 2-1. They have a big game coming up against the Chiefs on Sunday. But do you think specifically, the Steelers obviously are just playing a lot better than expected, or you also feel like the Chargers just kind of had a step back in this one? Final score, by the way, was 20-10 Pittsburgh.
I thought that this came down to two things. I thought it came down to the Chargers not taking advantage of their opportunities. I mean, they did have some opportunities in the first half, but that Steeler defense sniffed them out, and that Steeler defense caused a really great turnover late in that first half that prevented the Chargers from scoring points. But I also think that, like you said, this Steeler defense, Ben, reminds me of, you remember when Peyton Manning and the Broncos won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50? It reminds me of that. Like that, they're playing Super Bowl level defense, and they don't really need a quarterback to put up godly numbers. They just need a quarterback to come in there, not make mistakes, put up pedestrian-like numbers, and just run the football, and that's how they're going to win games. And I mean, this is one of the most shocking things of the season is the Steelers are 3-0. I mean, who would have ever thought that? Like in that division with the Bengals and Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, Deshaun Watson, and the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about the Browns because my goodness, what has happened to the Deshaun Watson is insane. But the Steelers being 3-0 is just, it's insane to think about. And, I think this defense with that high-powered offenses in the division with the Bengals and the Ravens in that division, I think if Pittsburgh could keep up that defensive play with TJ Watt and Cole, I think they are a legit threat to win that division because I just don't trust any of those other teams. But for the Chargers' sake, I think this game was over once Justin Herbert went down with that injury. Once he re-aggravated it, like Easton Stick. I mean, like a poor guy was
like Heineke.
He was like a sacrificial body, basically, just getting hammered by the Pittsburgh defense. Like it was just over from there. Ben, the one thing I've noticed about Jim Harbaugh's teams, and I think it dates back to his days with Michigan and also with the Niners, is if they get down big and they have to rely on the passing game, it's over. Because Jim Harbaugh's teams are teams that are based on a physical running game, a run-first, run-heavy style of offense. And you've seen it recently with the Chargers that that they've been, once they get down big, it's over. It's over for the Chargers. So I think that for the Chargers' sake, they have to be in the lead and they have to keep Justin Herbert upright and healthy. And, to be honest, I don't know if I would play him against the Kansas City Chiefs because that ankle is like a ticking time bomb. Like any just slight re-aggravation, and this turns into potentially a week-to-week type of injury, it goes to a month of an injury, and you cannot afford to lose Justin Herbert for that significant time. So if I'm the Chargers, I think that you got to sit him out. Like, I know it's painful to lose to the Chiefs. I know it's painful to lose a bunch of other games, but you got to do what's best for your team for the future. Like, you can't just do a week to week, like, hey, we're going to play him because we want to beat Mahomes. No, you got to, if you want to make the playoffs, you got to save Justin Herbert for the second half of the season. Like, or else he's going to be out. Your season's going to be dead. And we're only in, September and the start of October.
Yeah, I definitely agree for sure. So, yep, Steelers go to 3-0, and the Chargers go to 2-1. The next game we're going to recap is the Minnesota Vikings and the Houston Texans. And man, Stephen Wayne, how about the Vikings? The skull is alive and well, and who would have thought? Including us, honestly. I thought the Vikings would be absolutely brutal and horrible. As we welcome John Alcorn into the program. John, welcome to the Extra Point, my friend. But yeah, all I gotta say is, wow. I mean, I had a feeling that maybe that Houston would come up short in this one. I mean, I had them to win, but just the way that it happened. And I think the big reason, at least for this start for the Minnesota Vikings, and at least in the first 3 games, is their defense under Brian Flores has been absolutely electric. He's been able to essentially dice up against 2 really good offenses. When you have C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, then you have obviously with the Niners with Brock Purdy, George Kittle, obviously no McCaffrey, but still a really solid offense under Kyle Shanahan. And you do that for the last 2 weeks. I mean, you're definitely doing something right. And it's also, too, with the play of Sam Darnold. I think a lot of people should start to, at least for the start of the 3 weeks, Sam Darnold maybe has found his new home. I'm obviously not going to go crazy for the people that say, like, MVP or something crazy like that per se, but I do think that we should definitely give him his flowers. He's been absolutely fantastic. In this game, he went 17 of 28, 181 yards, and 4 touchdowns without any turnovers, too. He's only thrown 2 interceptions so far in the first 3 weeks. That's been something with Sam Darnold's problem in the past is his turnover problems. And he's done a really good job being able to protect the football. And between the defense of the Vikings doing really well so far and his overall play, that's the reason why they're 3-0. And so we obviously have to give her credits too. In terms of the Texans, it was not a great one. I believe Joe Mixon actually was out for this game, but regardless of the fact, he was out. This one, Cam Akers stepped in, but CJ Stroud, 20 of 31, 215 yards. He had 2 picks. That was a massive part to it. Defensively, they gave up 34 points. So it's kind of a step back for the Texans in this one. I mean, the Texans, so far, the 3 games, they've been good, but I also think that maybe a couple of people have overhyped them a little too much. I think they've been good. I think they're a very good team. But I just think, I don't know if the hype is just there just yet. But it also could just be one of those type of games as well, too. I mean, the Vikings are just playing really, really well. So without further ado, John Alcorn, I'm going to start with you. What was your overall reactions in terms of this Vikings-Texans game? How do you feel about both teams so far in the first 3 weeks? And do you feel like the Vikings are for real, or do you feel like this is kind of a fluke 3-0 run so far?
They remind me a slight bit of that Sam Bradford Vikings team, where a veteran quarterback comes in who struggled with his previous teams, and obviously this team is obviously to me better set, better defensive coordinator. I remember telling people before the season started, I think Sam Darnold with those weapons can be really, really good. And it's not like they need him to throw for 300 to 400 yards a game. And excuse me in a second, I'm probably cut out here, but he doesn't need to throw for 300 to 400 yards a game. Let him get the check down to Justin Jefferson. They'll be just fine. Houston, I mean, what that song goes, I've seen this before, and it's really not a big deal. This is why a lot of people that overreact to the first 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, is absolutely insane. Houston started off with 3-6. They were a potential top 5 pick. Then they won a playoff game, won a division. You also got to understand you're in a division with Jacksonville, and a team where their mascot is humping the air. So again, Texas will win their division. I think Minnesota will be just fine. But I think again, it's still Detroit's division to lose at this point, unless somehow Jared Goff has an ACL tear.
No, I 100% agree. I think, it's really hard to gauge at least the first couple weeks of the season because anything can definitely happen. We've seen it before. But obviously, to get a good start to the season as well, too, does at least kind of show at least some promise, at least for some of the teams that definitely need it. A team, for example, like the Vikings. I mean, when you're obviously in a really tough division like the not the, well, the Bears obviously I don't think are gonna be great, but like the Packers and the Lions, I think that the Vikings, being 3-0, obviously they can fall off for sure throughout the year. But I think at least so far under Brian Flores, it's been pretty impressive to say the least, especially against two high-powered offenses 2 out of the 3 weeks. So I'm going to give it to you, Isaiah. What do you feel about this overall game? And do you have anything to say about what Steven's team is doing currently for the first 3 weeks, my friend?
You know, this might be a historic, monumental moment. This
Oh
might be
man,
a moment that is clipped. But I gotta
Shocker.
admit, I was wrong on the Vikings. I was very wrong on the Minnesota Vikings. I had them going 4-13 and finishing in last this season. And the Vikings are not only, I think, going to surpass that expectation, but they're going to more than double or triple that expectation. I think this is now a 9-win team, at least. I mean, what can you say? I mean, Brian Flores is a hell of a defensive coach.
he is.
You know,
One of
I,
the only ones
I
from the Belichick tree that actually did well.
yeah, like I'm very impressed by their defense. Because I thought that the thing that was gonna hold them up was gonna be that defense. Like I didn't believe in that defense because I thought that defense was slow and I thought they were old. And credit to Brian Flores and his scheme. He's been coaching the heck out of this defense. Van Ginkel looks like a stud in the middle. Harrison Smith. I mean, this dude fell off a couple of years ago, and then all of a sudden he's reemerged as a top safety in the NFL. He's been really good for them. Jonathan Grenard has been very good for them. They've had contributions from both their defensive line and their secondary. And how about their secondary? I mean, they're literally piecing this together with Harrison Smith, who is their safety, who fell off a couple of years ago, and we didn't know where he was. Javon Bullard, a rookie. Stephon Gilmore, a guy that was a cast off from the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, how good would the Cowboys? I mean, how much better would the Cowboys defense be with him right now? And then Shaquille Griffin, Shaquille Griffin, who got released by the Seattle Seahawks. They're literally piecing this defense together with a bunch of outcasts, and somehow they're playing just lights out football. I mean, they just dominated C.J. Stroud and the Texans. They were all over him. That defensive line was just in his face all game long. He threw 2 picks. They shut down the running game, which is what the Texans really rely on, that run game, to open up the play action pass. Diggs did his thing, Collins did their thing, but outside of that, I mean, the pressure, the shutting down the run game, just impressive stuff from that Vikings defense. And that offense led by Kevin O'Connell, I can't believe what we're seeing from Sam Darnold. Like, I knew Darnold was talented, but the thing with him was his turnovers, like you mentioned, Ben. And not only has he not been turning the football over, he's been playing really flawless football, like throughout the first 3 games of the season. The running game, Aaron Jones, I mean, this dude had a down year last season. We all thought he was washed. I mean, he looks like prime Aaron Jones right now, both running the football and catching the football. Justin Jefferson has obviously been very electric, but I think the biggest story is that defense. That defense has come a long way. They've played really good football, and I've been very impressed by them.
Yeah, so the Vikings will have a massive matchup coming up in week 4 against Green Bay at Green Bay. So it'll set to be a really fun one for that one. So we're going to keep on moving here, and we're going to be recapping here the Philadelphia Eagles against the Saints. The Saints were coming in 2-0. The Eagles just had a awful loss the week before against the Falcons. The Eagles get back in the winning column. It was a very ugly win, though, to say the least. They won 15-12. The Saints got their first loss. The Saints obviously scored a ton of points the first couple weeks, but you're kind of expecting they're in for kind of a letdown. And the Eagles, I got to say, guys, Jalen Hurts, quarterback so far in the first 3 weeks, has not been great. He has like a 60 QBR rating right now. And Nick Sirianni, I know they're 2-1, which is crazy to think, but he has just been awful. I mean, for most of the overall time, the first 3 weeks, something's going on there. They're currently battling with a lot of injuries right now. Devontae Smith just got concussed, so he might be out for the next week against Tampa Bay. Lane Johnson's currently banged up as well too. It was legitimately in the first quarter, it was a 3-0 score for the Saints, and then everything else in the fourth quarter. The biggest play, Saquon Barkley had 2 touchdown runs, and that pretty much was it. So it really has not been because of the passing game for the Eagles so far this year. It's been because of the running attack from Saquon Barkley. So I gotta say specifically, even though the Eagles are 2-1, I've not been really impressed by them. Their secondary is still not great. And I don't know, something's not really right there, but a win's a win at the end of the day. So I'm gonna go to you, Isaiah. What's your overall reactions to this game?
Dennis Allen master choke class. That's what this game was. You literally have the lead. You're up by 5 points after you scored a touchdown. The Eagles have like a minute 30 left, and I think they were facing like 3rd down and 12 at their own, I think, 31-yard line, and you don't send any person to cover Dallas Goedert. You're the defensive play caller of the New Orleans Saints. You know Dallas Goedert is one of the primary weapons of this Philadelphia Eagles offense, and you know Jalen Hurts always goes to him in situations like this, and he's like a security blanket for him. And you literally, and I was watching this game, and I was literally like jaw dropped by this. Dallas Goedert was wide open. Not only was he wide open, there wasn't anybody like 20 feet of him. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I understand if this was like a 3rd-string tight end or a 2nd-string tight end, make him beat you. But this is Dallas freaking Goedert. He's one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Those weapons for the Eagles are Saquon Barkley. Devontae Smith wasn't there because he was already concussed. A.J. Brown was out. It was Saquon and Dallas Goedert. Those are the 2 guys you have to stop, because other than that, like, there's really nobody else that poses a serious threat to you. And you don't send anybody 20 feet of Dallas Goedert, and you let him catch the football and then run down the sidelines for a game-winning 50-yard touchdown catch and run. Like, that's just so pathetic. Like, this is why Dennis Allen is going to be one of the coaches that's going to get fired this season, is because it's not that he's not a good coach. He's an awful defensive play caller. Like, we've seen it. When situations happen where the Saints have to get a stop to win a game, they always blow it. And that always happens. And look, credit to Vic Fangio, the Eagles defensive coordinator. He did a great job dialing up a scheme to stop Derek Carr and that high explosive offense. Vic Fangio, I think, coming in, I kind of knew the Saints would struggle just because Fangio has had success going against the Kyle Shanahan scheme, and that's what the Saints run with Clint Kubiak. So I'm not surprised there. I am surprised that Dennis Allen, I mean, dude, 4th and 1, this was in the first quarter too, 4th and 1, and you're at the Eagles' 24-yard line. Kick the field goal. Why are you going for it this early in the game? They go for it. They don't get it. The Eagles take over. Like, there was just a lot of just boneheaded decisions in this game by both coaches. And, like, Philly's 2-1, but like you mentioned, Ben, I think they are the biggest pretenders in the NFL. They're winning in spite of both Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni, I mean, this dude is just so awful. Like, I don't know how he won Coach of the Year like a year ago or a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. Like, they're winning games in spite of him. Like, this dude is like, he's just, I mean, you might as well give him green pom-poms, because that's what he's doing. He's not coaching offense. He's not coaching defense. This dude is literally just cheering and clapping like Jason Garrett on the sideline. The worst coaching decision I saw was, and I think I posted this in our group chat. I think, John, you probably know about this too, where the Philadelphia Eagles was at the Saints' 12-yard line. They were down 3-0 with about 12 seconds left before halftime. They have one timeout left. It's 4th and 1. And what does Nick Sirianni do? He goes for it. They go for it, and they try to run, and they get stuffed. And not only do you not get it, you don't get points before the half. Like, you could ask any high school coach, college coach, and they would say, kick it in that situation. That was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. Like, I literally busted out of my chair laughing when they didn't get it. I was like, that's just classic Nick Sirianni and class Eagles time management or time mismanagement. It was just pure stupidity. But hey, Nick Sirianni got rescued by Dennis Allen and his moronic decisions late in that game. I mean, for you to not send the guy 20 feet of Dallas Goedert, that's a disgrace right there. Like you just can't have that happen. And yeah, like it was just a terrible terrible game play calling wise by both of these two coaches.
Yeah, I took a look when you mentioned about the fourth down the Nick Sirianni put out. The Eagles went for it on fourth down 3 times. Typically, when you go for it more than like twice in fourth downs, something's not right. Unless like you're essentially down by a lot, which they weren't. So that was really fascinating to hear. All right, continuing on, the Broncos get their first one this season. They explode for 26 points against the Buccaneers. The Bucks were, I think, a 6.5 point favorite. The Bucks had a kind of a tough week after the first couple great wins that they had to start the season. And Isaiah, we were talking about the Broncos and the way that Bo Nix and Sean Payton were pretty much doing in preseason. I know a lot of people don't want to kind of base it off of that, but this was a game where the Broncos and Bo Nix just, I thought, looked really effective. Offensively, they were moving the football a lot better than they have in the first couple weeks. Nix went 25 of 36 for 216 yards, and he didn't throw a pick or touchdown or a pick, but he was able to control the game. Baker, on the other side for the Bucks, went 25 of 33, 163 yards, touchdown and a pick. Not great from Baker, but it really came down to the defense and the execution by the Broncos. They were able to enforce 2 turnovers, and they were able to execute the time of possession by a little bit more as well too. So as I was overall reaction to this game, Will Lutz also had 4 field goals in this win. So Sean Payton gets on the win column. I gotta say, I think that for the Bucks, I wouldn't worry too much about this. I think this is just an overall type of tough one for them. They were kind of due for a game like this after the first couple of weeks. But the Broncos definitely need a game like this, especially when they were kind of playing the first couple of weeks. And Bo Nix definitely had his best week so far this season.
Yeah, I know we've ripped on Sean Payton and Bo Nix a lot on this show, but I was very impressed. Bo Nix, look, he didn't have a touchdown pass in this game, but he was both very effective, making plays with both his legs and his arm, getting the ball out in timely fashion. But I think the biggest story in this game, Ben, was the defense of the Broncos. There's a reason why Vance Joseph, I think, is going to be a hot coaching candidate this offseason because his defenses the last 2 years have just been dynamic for the Broncos, both getting after the quarterback, getting turnovers, getting sacks. Baker Mayfield just looked very, very uncomfortable throughout the entire game, and that he just looked very overwhelmed. And I think that's a credit to Vance Joseph and that defense. The Broncos got a great defense. It's just, can their offense can they be like the Steelers and, let the defense do their thing, but also the quarterback don't make any mistakes and just, get timely first downs. I mean, I think that's what they need to do. And I think they can, but you were right. The Broncos needed a game like this where they needed to bounce back. The Bucks were kind of due for a game like this. They were on the emotional high of beating the Detroit Lions after last year's playoff loss. I think for the Broncos, this was a great win. I'm still not really that impressed by the offense. I know they put up 26 points, but the offense looked kind of like clunked. It looked kind of like off. Throughout the game, but that defense is for real, and that defense is just so good for the Broncos. And if they can just, not turn the football over, just get first downs, get the ball, in the end zone or get scores, sometimes that defense is going to hold up. And I think it's going to be a reason why the Broncos win games this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, remember the Broncos earlier last year, they gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, and a lot of people are coming at Vance Joseph's neck. And pretty much after that game, the defense of the Broncos did a pretty solid job. It's just the overall offensive execution that just never got going for them. So the Broncos get their first win under their belt in this one against the Bucks. All right, the Green Bay Packers, in the absence of Jordan Love, Isaiah, the Packers have gotten 2 wins. I got to give a lot of credit to that team. Now, I know they obviously faced the Colts and the Titans, 2 AFC South teams. One specifically has had a little bit more expectations than the other. We're going to talk about Will Levis in just a quick sec because, my goodness, he's one of the guys so far that has been unreal in a bad way, by the way. But the Packers got to give credit to Malik Willis. He actually had a revenge game. Of course, Malik Willis was on the Titans roster a couple of years ago with Ryan Tannehill. But Malik Willis came in the first last couple weeks here, and I got to say, I think that they've had kind of a different offensive scheme with him. It's been more of like a HB option, a lot of zone reads and stuff, kind of compared to what Jordan Love is more of a pocket passer and kind of throwing around on the run. I like how Matt LaFleur has been kind of running this offense with Willis right now. And it's definitely with the way that defense, I think, for the Packers has done so far. I mean, they have a really good defense. And I think all in all, if Willis can keep on doing what he's doing, I'm not saying, you have to rush Jordan Love back, but I think that, obviously they have a massive game this weekend against Minnesota, which the way Minnesota's been playing. If Jordan Love, I know that he was practicing this upcoming week. I wouldn't rush him, right away. I think that the way that Malik Willis has been playing right now, I think that, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be, topping at 20 points every single game, but I also think that the way that Malik Willis is just kind of taking care of the football, he's just pretty much getting asked to do, at least from the LaFleur offensive scheme. I think they just keep on riding with him. And so, I mean, the Packers, they're 2-1, and got to give them credit. Now, on the other side, the Titans are 0-3, and the massive reason to that is because of their quarterback. Now, I know that obviously Will Levis, he puts mayonnaise in his coffee, so that's obviously one reason that he is fumbling. He is fumbling on and off the field, essentially. He cannot take care of the football right now in the first 3 weeks. They actually asked him what that the Titans have to do after the game, and he pretty much said that I have to start turning the ball over. And I know they hit through 2 touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions, that pretty much kind of takes over for it. He is the we were talking about this a lot last year, Isaiah, about the Titans. We have to kind of know, is Will Levis the guy? And right now, it doesn't seem like it. Right now, he's just been turning the ball over like crazy. He's been very reckless with the ball. He kind of reminds me of what Josh Allen used to be when he was really, really young. A guy that he has guys around him, but he's just extremely reckless. He tries to do way too much, by himself, and it's definitely been costing them. So the Titans go to 0-3. Their defense has not been great at all. I wasn't a really big fan of their defense at all. So if you have a defense that's giving up a ton of points and your offense, where your quarterback turn the ball over a lot, it's not a good recipe for success. So that's pretty much that. But what do you think about the Packers going to 2-1 after this win?
We ripped Dennis Allen and Nick Sirianni in the last segment with that last game. But I think that this game, you got to give praise to Matt LaFleur. I think when Jordan Love went down, everybody was like, the Packers are over because, they don't have a quarterback. Nobody trusts in Malik Willis. We were, in fact, even talking about like potential replacements for Jordan Love, since we were like, you cannot go into the next month or however many weeks that Jordan Love is going to miss with Malik Willis at quarterback. The guy cannot throw the football to save his life. And Matt LaFleur, he ignored all the criticism, and he actually changed his offense to fit Malik Willis's skill set. And they've been really good running the football with both Willis and the running backs that they have there. Willis with his timely throws. I've been very impressed. I think this is Matt LaFleur's best coaching job of his career thus far. What he's been able to do without Jordan Love, it's been very, very impressive. And I think that, the Vikings should be scared because without Jordan Love, the Packers are still a great threat, with Malik Willis, with that new offense that they're running, and that defense. They've been getting takeaways. They've been getting sacks. They've been getting after the quarterback. It's been very impressive to watch on both sides. And I think as a Packer fan, you got the right head coach in Matt LaFleur. He's not a product of Aaron Rodgers. He's not a product of Jordan Love. This guy can flat out coach offense, and I've been very impressed with him. As far as the Titans are concerned, I mean, what a joke. I mean, you look at the AFC South, Ben. Who has it worse, the Titans or the Jags? I mean, we talk about the Titans with Will Levis, like him being a first round pick, and him, missing expectations left and right. How about Trevor Lawrence and him failing, like just downfalling like crazy the last couple of years?
We'll talk about them in a little bit.
But as far as the Titans, I mean, I think Malik Willis definitely wanted to show his old team that he screwed up in trading him. So there was definitely that motivation factor right there. The Titans are just awful. Brian Callahan, his play calling has been kind of suspect. Will Levis is showing that he's not the guy in Tennessee moving forward. Because we were supposed to get better under Brian Callahan. Like everybody was like, oh, the reason why Levis sucked last year was because of Mike Vrabel and he's being a defensive coach and all of this stuff. So they hired an offensive guy at Brian Callahan. Well, he's been worse, I think, or he's been either worse or the same. So
he's still turning the ball over. So.
Yeah, he's still turning the football over. He's making dumb decisions, like against the Bears in the last game that they played. The defense has not been good whatsoever. It's just been a mess in Tennessee, and I think that it's going to be a long rebuild. I think they're going to get a new quarterback this offseason because I don't think Levis is going to work out. And, quite honestly, Ben, now it's showing that it's not Mike Vrabel's fault why the Tennessee Titans were not good last season and why Levis struggled. It's Will Levis. Will Levis, I've never really been impressed with him dating back to his days at Kentucky. Like, I thought he was always turning the football over in his college days, and now you see it's translated to the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we talked about, this is a team right now that's in absolute disarray. They have to figure out to get a win under the belt, like some teams that are currently winless at this time. All right, so let's see where else we have not gone into. The New York Giants. I watched that game, Isaiah. That Giants-Browns game, that was the disaster. That was a train wreck from both sides. The Giants essentially were asking to give the Browns the game. Specifically, the Browns just did not want to take it. My brother and I were watching this game, and my brother actually made a very good point to me after. And we talked about this coach kind of on the hot seat for a while, but he could be coming under his last year. Kevin Stefanski, I think, has to go. I think that it's kind of long overdue. But Deshaun Watson, I know that he threw 2 touchdowns, but the guy still looks like he's a show on himself. And that Browns team, man, they're a complete disaster. I know they're 1-2, definitely things can get going, but they're heavily relying on Deshaun Watson. And if you're relying on a broken, heavily Deshaun Watson to basically save your season until Nick Chubb comes back, it's not going to work out well. It's just not. I just felt like in that second half, too, Deshaun essentially was just pretty much force-feeding Amari Cooper, in which he's a great receiver. But you can also realize, too, you have Jerry Jeudy, who you just brought in this year. I know that they didn't have David Njoku. Why are you not using other guys around you and trying to essentially force it into one guy? It just does not make sense. And that might just be specifically a Kevin Stefanski type of thing. But, they had chances to take that win, and the Giants essentially let them take the win, and they didn't want to take it. For the Giants standpoint, Daniel Jones. How about Daniel Jones, Isaiah? Back-to-back weeks, he's looked like actually a competent quarterback. And this is actually a guy that had to go against a pretty good Browns defense, all things considered. And he had a very good showing. He went 24 of 34, a 70.6 percentage, 236 yards, 6.9 per yards attempt, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Daniel Jones in the last 2 weeks, Isaiah, has thrown 4 interceptions to no interception. 4 touchdowns to no interceptions. I mean, that's incredible. I know that a lot of Giant fans were kind of ripping on him, the 2 touchdowns that he threw in the first week, and he's definitely responded against 2 defenses, I think, that are going to be making some noise this year. So what was your overall thoughts on this one? We also have to give the Flyers some Malik Neighbors because I think he's really helped Daniel Jones when it's come to his confidence. He's had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, 2 touchdowns in this game against the Browns, and then a touchdown the week before. So what do you think about the Giants win over the Browns? And
my thoughts on this game is that Malik Neighbors is a monster. I mean, this dude might end up being the best rookie offensive player this season. I mean, he's just a monster. The way that he could go up and get the football, the way that he could create separation. I mean, it's just amazing what this guy is doing. And I don't want to go too far in this direction, Ben, but this guy might be the next Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's got the height, he's got the skill set. He's basically the only thing that's keeping Daniel Jones afloat right now. Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones, sadly, like there were a couple balls that he prevented from the opposing team being caught that like Daniel Jones should have had a couple picks in that game. But there were a couple passes that Malik Neighbors knew he wasn't going to catch, but he played DB and he just knocked it away from the defender. You know, like you said, this was a game where both teams were just dying to give each other the game. The Giants were dying to give the Browns the game. The Browns ended up losing, but they were dying to give the Giants the game. Deshaun Watson, even though he had 2 touchdowns, he looked awful. Like I don't know what's gone on with him ever since he went to Cleveland. He's just been a whole different quarterback, and the star that was Deshaun Watson is gone. The competent quarterback is gone. There was one, I think, late in the fourth quarter where the Browns needed a drive down the field to score a touchdown, and he had a wide open Amari Cooper cutting to the left, and he threw it way too high and just put too much zip on it. And that's something that you see like a rookie or a second-year quarterback would make. Not a Deshaun Watson caliber quarterback who is a former superstar and did a lot of great things. Like you just never see that. And normally with Deshaun Watson, like he puts a lot. When he throws the football, like he throws it with accuracy, especially when he was with Houston. And you just don't see it anymore. Like you see a quarterback that's also afraid to run the football. I don't know what's going on. Like this has to be studied, as it's like a massive mystery as to what's gone on with Deshaun Watson. Like there's something wrong with him, a lot of things wrong with him, but like it's sad to see that, a guy that was once considered like the face of the league, a guy that was in the MVP conversation every single year, like he's just gone downhill fast, and it's not a slow downhill. He's been just like going from the top to the bottom, just straight quick. And I don't know what the Browns are going to do, because they still are, I think, are locked into his deal for about 3-4 more seasons. And that's like, you can't even really release him, because I think Russell Wilson and the Broncos had to pay Russell Wilson, or they had to have an $82 million dead cap hit to release.
There's probably dead cap and Deshaun's too.
Yeah, it's 96 mil. Like you're not gonna do that. You can't do that with 9. Like that's almost 100 million in dead cap. Like you're not gonna do that. Yeah. So I mean, poor Browns fans. I mean, they're gonna be stuck with him for like a while.
And the crazy thing is too, when you're talking about like Deshaun's downfall, is he's still young. Like that's the thing. Like it's one thing if like you're getting up there in age and you're feeling a little washed up and stuff like that. Then I could be like, all right, we kind of went through the overall situation off the field, and then you kind of got a little bit up there in age, and you kind of started breaking down. It's just it's fascinating. Like I just don't know. I mean, there's been glimpses of maybe the old, but it's like it's very, very slim, if anything, and it just doesn't seem like the same quarterback of once was, like at all. Like the one of once was, it just felt like he had a ton of confidence. He was able to gun the ball. This guy just feels like he doesn't have a lot of the accuracy that he once was, and he doesn't have the same feet that he'd had before. So it's just that's essentially what a broken quarterback has done, and it's just not the same type of guy.
And we also honestly got to give a lot of credit and love to Bill O'Brien, because for people that were trashing him, he put an offense and a system around Deshaun Watson that made him great. Like Deshaun Watson, he gave him confidence. He taught him great footwork. He's taught him everything about the quarterback position. And he was the coach that got the most out of Deshaun Watson and made Deshaun Watson look like an MVP. Without Bill O'Brien, he's been awful for the Houston Texans and the Browns. And it's just a shame, because like you mentioned, he's young. He still, is in his prime, and sadly, like he looks like a guy that, instead of being, I think he's like 28 or 29, he looks like a guy who's 38, to be honest with you. Like he just looks so washed up and just so broken, to the point where I don't know who's going to be able to fix him if whoever goes into Cleveland.
Definitely. All right, so we're gonna kind of recap these games a little more on the quicker side, but we'll go through at least one of the more of the 1 o'clock slate games. So the Colts defeated the Chicago Bears by the final score of 21-16. The Colts go to 1-2. They get their first one on the season. The Bears suffered for their second loss. And I'm going to say about this so far between these two teams. Anthony Richardson has not looked great. He looks very Jalen Hurts-like actually right now. I thought that Anthony Richardson would be a lot better currently where he is, at least for the first 3 weeks. He's thrown 6 interceptions so far this season, the first 3 weeks. Yeah, it's pretty staggering. He threw 2 interceptions despite them in the win in this game on Sunday, and he threw 3 interceptions against the Packers in the second week. So theoretically, the Colts, just like the Eagles, they've been kind of struggling specifically in the passing game. I know obviously the coaching is a lot better in terms of that the Eagles are kind of going through right now. But thankfully they had Jonathan Taylor kind of waking up in this one. He got a touchdown. The Colts also forced 2 turnovers on Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams, this is specifically why we can't rush these type of rookie quarterbacks in, because right now I don't want to declare Caleb Williams a bust. But currently there's been a lot of patches that have been rough under Caleb Williams. I know he threw for 353 plus yards. That's obviously great and all dandy and stuff like that. What I want to see specifically on a quarterback is the turnovers. And he's thrown at least a couple turnovers. He threw two turnovers in this one. So it obviously hurt them. Specifically, he's the guy that they need to be able to elevate. And they also do not get much in the running game. DeAndre Swift is supposed to be the new guy they brought in. He did not do much whatsoever, so they're relying a lot on the passing attack. So I think that this Bears team has a ton of potential, but I also think that this hype that we pretty much talked about all in the offseason, you kind of need to back it up a little bit, because you have 2 other better teams currently right now in the division. And with Caleb Williams, a lot of the stuff that he's going to want to try to do in the pros, it's not – what he was trying to do in college is not going to work in the pros. Kind of the video game type of stuff, we can scramble and stuff like that. You're already kind of seeing that with these defenses. They're a lot quicker. They can scheme a lot better. And you've already kind of seen specifically when he tries to be a hero at times, we've seen that he's thrown the turnovers overall, and he's taking a lot of sacks. So that's my overall assumption this one. I think both quarterbacks currently are going through a lot of struggles right now, and it really wasn't because the Colts didn't win because of their quarterback, in which I do like Anthony Richardson. I think he has a lot of potential, but so far in the first 2 weeks, it has not been great. He has to get a lot better if the Colts want to be get into a postseason spot, if anything. So it came down to kind of what the Eagles got. They got some turnovers. Their defense played all right, and it was all the running game. So what was your overall reaction to this game?
My reaction is that Caleb Williams reminds me of Trey Lance. In the regard that Trey Lance,
I like that comp, actually.
Yeah, like the problem with Trey Lance is that he would have all this amazing physical gifts, and he would be able to throw the football down the field and throw it like 60 to 70 yards. The problem with him is that he couldn't put enough touch on the passes, and he turned the football over like crazy, and he was too he would always read the defenses and get the ball out too slow. So that's why he turned the football over a lot and took a lot of sacks. So Caleb Williams reminds me of Trey Lance, a guy that he put a lot of he tries to do a lot of those video game stuff. A lot of guys got a lot of physical talent, but he just doesn't put enough zip on the football and touch on the football, and he just cannot find that balance. And I think that's the issue that he's facing right now, because in college when he was at USC, and here's the thing, they played in the Pac-12, and Ben, you and I both know this, that the Pac-12 does not have the greatest defenses in the world. Let's face that. It's like someone playing in the Big 12. The Big 12 is all about offense, and offense. Nobody plays defense in the Big 12. So a lot of these times, these Big 12 quarterbacks, they never really translate to the NFL, except if you're Patrick Mahomes. For Caleb Williams, he was just doing a lot of these video game stuff, trying to be Mahomes-like at USC, and it just isn't translating, because you could do all these Superman video game stuff, but you also got to do the simple fundamental stuff as well, and he's just not doing that right now. And I think at this point, if the Bears continue to play the way they are right now, if the play calling is the way that it is with that vanilla scheme, it might cost Matt Eberflus his job, because that defense also is not playing up to task. The offense, I know, has struggled. I don't like that decision to hire Shane Waldron. I think his scheme in Seattle got a little bit stale down.
Seattle fans have been rejoicing so far this year. about his overall scheme because you're seeing what the Seattle offense is looking like right now. They really struggled last year, and they've been
Yeah,
able to move
yeah.
the football at a much better rate. And the Bears specifically, they're using a ton of screen passes. Their offensive line's not looking great, so it
Nope.
just completely looks very out of whack right now over there.
And that's the problem with these rookies is like these rookie quarterbacks are great, but they need time to throw the football. Like you can't give them, and this is why I don't think the Patriots should play Drake May, is because the offensive line is going to be so bad that he's going to be running for his life, which will lead to him throwing a lot of picks or getting sacked a bunch, and then they're going to end up turning the football over, which kills their confidence, or they're going to end up getting hurt. So I think
Yeah,
for the Bears, you're seeing it right now. Caleb, on a lot of occasions, doesn't have enough time to throw the football. That's why he's throwing a lot of picks, and that's why he's struggling. So, the Bears, they got to fix that offensive line. Caleb, he's got to do like the simple stuff. That's what he's got to work on. And I think for the Colts, I've also really never been a fan of Anthony Richardson. Like when he was at Florida, this dude
mm,
was a turnover machine. Like he would turn the
mm,
football over like crazy. He just had really amazing physical traits. That's why he was rated so high. But I think this is the problem with teams in the NFL is they go based on physical traits and they go based on like how far you can throw the football instead of how if you could do like the intermediate stuff. Like that's the thing with Brock
yeah.
Purdy. Like Brock Purdy did not have like the greatest physical traits, but what he could do was he was really good at putting zip on the football, putting enough touch, just fitting the balls in, making smart decisions. Like that's why he's turning out to be a really good quarterback, unlike some of these quarterbacks right now that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that I do think that like guys like Josh Allen and guys like Patrick Mahomes, they had to learn that. Where they were kind of coming out of college, kind of like similar, kind of like Anthony Richardson and some other guys, where they had to really kind of get themselves to figure out the short passing and the immediate gain. And if you get a offensive coordinator and you got the coaching and stuff, you can definitely kind of work around that, and you can kind of see how their offense and how their physical ability is when you kind of be able to do everything else. And I think that's what Anthony Richardson is right now. Is he's still really raw, and so he's essentially using kind of a lot of his traits that ability, but it's not enough currently because he's still turning the ball over at a massive rate. All right, so we're gonna kind of go through these other games, but not kind of really react to them because we're already at the top of the hour on the extra point, and we do really appreciate for the people that have gone in so far. So the Panthers, congrats to them. They got their first one of the season thanks to Andy Dalton. Get a very very good one against the Raiders. Final score 36, Raiders 22. The Seattle Seahawks continue the winning ways. Give credit to Mike McDonald. They defeat the Miami Dolphins under Skylar Thompson. Of course, Tua is currently out right now. So Skylar Thompson came in. He obviously didn't do much. He also went down. So the Dolphins have to figure out their quarterback situation. They're probably going to go with Tyler Huntley if Skylar Thompson cannot go. And so the Dolphins are going to be really up in shambles, I'd say, for at least for a while here. The game of the week, the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys came back in this one, but they fell short. The Ravens had a very good start to this game. Derrick Henry has been a massive, massive difference maker so far this Ravens team, and I think we all kind of knew that coming in. But Lamar Jackson and company, they got up to a 20-6 lead in the third quarter. Dallas had 3 scores in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't enough. I think the Dallas defense so far has not been great. That's been the reason why they've lost these 2 games at least, and they're both at home too. So that was one thing I thought in the past. Dallas has been a pretty good home team, but so far they've not looked great at home. And Baltimore needed to win badly, and they got the one in this game. The Lions, they had a good win against the Cardinals. The Cardinals go to 1-2. Jared Goff had a pretty effective game, 18-23 for 199 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick, but he was perfect from the stat line at the end of the first half, so he was very effective. And Amon-Ra St. Brown finally found the end zone in that game. Obviously, the Rams and the Niners game. Now, I went to the Phillies and Mets game on Sunday, and I saw the Niners were up by a couple scores, and then I got back on the train after the game was over, and I saw that you guys lost, and I'm like, what in the world happened? So If you want to at the end, Isaiah, before we get into our predictions for week 4, feel free to give those overall reactions. So just kind of save your thinking on that, because I obviously want to kind of get through these ones quick. Sunday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Falcons by the final 22-17. Monday Night Football, we talked about the Jaguars earlier on the program. They got creamed. They went to Buffalo on Monday Night Football, and they're still winless. Something's going on with Trevor Lawrence. Something's going on with the overall team. Doug Peterson's getting a lot of scrutiny, which is crazy to think, because he looked like he was going to really help Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, just absolute crazy stuff over there with Jacksonville. I don't know if it's going to get fixed up. And with the Bills, Josh Allen has proven that he can ball out without Stephon Diggs. He could just go to different guys. He doesn't have to focus on one guy. James Cook has been an absolute godsend so far in the backfield. Guys like Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins, Dalton Kincaid. They just have a ton of guys on the receiving room, and they're doing really good right now with Josh Allen. Allen threw 4 touchdowns in the first half, and he didn't have to play the second half. So he is playing at a very effective level, and he's essentially my MVP, at least from the quarterback standpoint, from the first 3 weeks of the season. And then the Commanders. That was the most surprising game of the week. How about Jaden Daniels? At least so far in the first 2 weeks, he's been the most impressive quarterback, to say the least. Even in the loss they had against the Giants last week, he was pretty effective overall. But he made probably the most impressive throws, I'd say, the whole entire week 3. I mean, the throw that he had, a 55-yard pass he had to Terry McLaurin on the left sideline in the first half. And then, of course, the touchdown pass in the second half. And I talked about this actually on Kicking with Cruz, where Lou Amaral and that defense from Cincinnati basically threw a 6-man blitz at the end, in which the Commanders essentially didn't want to settle for the field goal and go up by 9. They decided to go for the kill shot, and Jaden Daniels got hit by his arm and just chucked it 35 yards, 40 yards, right down the sideline. McLaurin catches it just like from the first half, but essentially on the other way, and he makes a phenomenal catch. And, you know, for Commander fans, I'm really happy for them. They've gone through a lot, specifically on and off the field. They finally found their quarterback, I think, for the future. I mean, he's going to be a flat-out stud. He looked very, very confident out there. In the offensive line, I think that's one thing about them so far compared to a lot of the other rookies, is Commanders seem to have a pretty solid offensive line. And you can see when you have a good offensive line and you got some weapons around, of course, your rookie definitely has a little confidence, and that's essentially how things looked. Now with the Bengals, they're in trouble. They're 0-3. Joe Burrow has played great in the last 2 weeks, and they're still losing. And their defense has not been great. And you think with the way that their defense has been the last couple of years, it wouldn't be like this. But, you know, no discredit to Jaden Daniels, but he absolutely torched your defense at your place on Monday Night Football. So there's a lot of questions going on over there for sure. So that's the whole rest of the week 3. I know obviously I kind of went along the fast track for the last, later slates on this one. But is there any other reactions that you want to get into, Isaiah, for the remainder of the weeks? Obviously, if you want to, feel free to talk about your Niners and that loss that you guys had against the Rams, feel free about that. But there's anything else you want to talk about from week 3 before we get into the picks on week 4, now's the time.
Yeah, I got a couple of takeaways. Number 1, Bill Belichick's stock is skyrocketing, because have you seen all these great teams struggling? The Bengals are 0-3. They look like crap. Their defense is playing awful. Lou Anarumo, I knew that defense when they were good like a couple years back. Last year, they kind of took a step back, but when their defense was good, I kind of knew they were fool's gold. You had guys playing at a career high level, which you and I both know that's not sustainable. Like, that's a 1-year thing, but after that, like, you can't really sustain that level of play. If you look at Lou Anarumo's track record in his career, he's never really been that good of a defensive coordinator. He's been all right. He's never really been he's never been great. And then now you see it. The Bengals, they're all out of place. The D-line's not getting to the quarterback. The secondary looks lost. It looks like a mess down there in Cincinnati. And they've got a really tough schedule coming up with I think they play the Panthers, and who knows, they might lose to the Panthers, because with the way Andy Dalton played against the Raiders, Who knows? Maybe he can torch up his former team, especially with how they're struggling defensively right now. And, the Jags, I mean, what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence? We don't know. You talk about Deshaun Watson and him having that downward spiral. How about Trevor Lawrence? I mean, to go from where he was a couple of years ago, winning that playoff game against the Chargers over Justin Herbert, to now struggling like this and just looking like a shell of himself. Like, it's been crazy how fast he's been going down. Doug Peterson, I think, is on the hot seat in Jacksonville because if Trevor Lawrence, especially after they collapsed the way like they did last year, losing I think 6 of their final 8 games, missing the playoffs, and then this year you're off to an 0-3 start. If the Jags,
the last thing you want too,
yeah,
right? Have the collapse of last year's second half. Legitimately, they're the Eagles of the AFC, except they just can't finish. Essentially,
no. They can't finish, and unlike Jalen Hurts, I mean, they don't have the Jags, they have a decent offense. I mean, you got Gabriel Davis there, you got Christian Kirk, you got weapons, and your quarterback is just struggling, and I don't know what's going on there. Dallas, like you mentioned, their defense awful, even with Micah Parsons. They can't stop the run, which I kind of knew was going to be the reason why they lost, because the Ravens are a run-heavy team. That's just a recipe for disaster. I think Dallas plays the Giants, and if they lose to the Giants, get ready, Ben. Yeah, get ready for the Bill Belichick calls to start skyrocketing, because right now, all these teams, Jags, Bengals, Cowboys, Giants, all potentially could be looking for new coaches this offseason, and Bill's going to be at the top of every single list, and his stock is just going up and up and up. It's going to be a sweepstakes. Imagine if you're Bill Belichick, man, and you're just looking out there wow, I could potentially coach Trevor Lawrence and the weapons they have there. I could potentially coach the Dallas Cowboys, that big brand with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. Jerry Jones, yeah. And I could also Joe Burrow, imagine Belichick and Burrow, that'd be crazy. Also, and I'm not saying I hope this doesn't happen, but maybe the Niners, if they have a really bad year, maybe you replace Shanahan with Belichick, and also Philly too. Belichick could have all these championship ready-made teams coming at him and being like, Bill, please coach us. His stock is just going by just going higher and higher. And also don't forget to mention the New York Giants, the team that he basically came up with as an assistant coach. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway is I think Bill Belichick, he's just looking at every great option is just coming together, and it's just very fascinating right now. The second takeaway is the Niners, Ben, are in big trouble. I hate to admit it as a Niner fan, but they are in massive trouble. And the reason why I say that is because you literally let Matthew Stafford and his weapons, who are filled with a bunch of third stringers, backups, practice squad guys, you let them light you up for 400 yards of total offense, over 27 points. This was Matthew Stafford and everybody else, and they lit you up. There was no pressure defensively. You paid Bosa all that money. You gave Hargraves all that money. You traded a high pick for Malik Collins from the Texans to be your middle defensive lineman to stuff the run. And then, you paid Leonard Floyd all that money. You paid Charvarius Ward all that money in the secondary, and your defensive line just cannot get any pressure whatsoever. You're going up against second and third string offensive linemen. The Rams offensive linemen were literally second and third string guys that they pieced together because all of their guys are hurt. And the Niners recorded 2 sacks. 2 sacks the entire day, and they let Matthew Stafford literally have all the time he wants in the world in the second half to throw the football, and they couldn't get pressure. I mean, Bosa was getting wrecked by a third-string right tackle. How is that possible? You're getting wrecked by a third-string right tackle, and you're making $20+ million. That's just insanity. And and now and then the secondary, I mean, that secondary, good God, they were busting coverages left and right. Charvarius Ward got beat by Tutu Atwell, who's just known for running down the middle. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I think at this point, Ben, if you put Shedeur Sanders and Colorado's offense against us, we would give up a boatload of points because we can't get pressure, and we're busting coverages left and right. And it's just, that's a recipe for disaster. And look, Brock Purdy, I think, had a statement game. Like, he had a really good game despite missing Kittle and CMC and Debo and all the guys that he was missing. I think he proved that, he's definitely not a product of the offense and the weapons, like that. He's actually a really good quarterback, which was great to see. I don't know why Kyle Shanahan abandoned the run late. That didn't make any sense. Jawan Jennings, I mean, what a day for him. 3 touchdowns and over 150 yards receiving. I mean, it was crazy to see him go off the way that he did. And then the special teams. I mean, missed field goal by Jake Moody. And then, oh my God, the punt where they punt the football away in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, and they literally have the Rams receiver surrounded, and somehow he breaks through and breaks out for a 40-yard punt return, and that basically sets up the Rams first down at the 50-yard line. Like, that was basically the game right there. Like, the problem with the Niners right now is every time we lose, and every time we lose a big game, it's because our defense just can't get pressure. Our secondary gets exposed. Our special teams screws up left and right, and Kyle Shanahan just stops running the football, and you see it right there. Why we lost to the Rams. And Ben, I don't know. I think the reason, people talk about Jimmy G when the Niners had him, and Kaepernick and Alex Smith, where they got off to bad starts and they were able to recover. The difference with those teams where it was the offense that was struggling, and the defense was stout. They were amazing. They were holding down the fort and waiting until the offense could come around. Now it's the opposite. It's the offense is putting up a lot of points. The defense is giving up a lot of yards and a lot of points. And if we play the way that we played on Sunday and against the Jets and against the Vikings, against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and the Cowboys and our tough schedule the rest of the way, it's gonna be bad. And Ben, I think that this is starting to remind me of 2020, where everybody's hurt, our defense is playing awful, and you're seeing it. I mean, Hargraves is out for the year now. CMC flew to Germany, I think, to get to see a specialist on his Achilles. Yeah. That's not good. Brock Purdy had a back injury, and those back injuries are always even if it's minor, those are something to not play with. Debo's out. Kittle, who knows if he's going to play. It's starting to have that 2020 feel where everybody got hurt, the defense is playing bad, and it just ended up being a really, really long season for the Niners.
Another thing, too, is you have to feel like Ayuk is maybe feeling some of the offseason, because right now, I don't know if you want to, before we get into this next coming week, what has been your thoughts so far about Brandon Ayuk? Because we haven't really seen that dominant Brandon Ayuk that we've seen of old, and I don't know specifically, it's just kind of from him, from the offseason chatter and this and that, but it doesn't seem like he's the same guy.
No, and it's not that he's not making those acrobatic catches. It's what's alarming is he's not making the simple catches. He's dropping a lot of passes that he typically catches in his sleep. And I think there was one where he literally had it was a route where he's going across the middle and he's wide open and the guy just drops it. And it's I know Purdy threw it maybe a little bit behind him, but still, that's a pass Brandon Ayuk catches last year 100 out of 100 times. That's how automatic he catches that ball. But I've been very disappointed by him. He's not making the simple catches. He's not making the big plays. He's not really doing anything on the football field right now. And the Niners need Ayuk to step up because Debo's hurt, Kittle's hurt, CMC's not there. You don't have your weapons, and Ayuk just hasn't performed up to the task, and it's been very disappointing to say the least.
We'll see what happens with your Niners, as they're going to be facing the Patriots in Week 4. And speaking of Week 4, well, here we go. This is the slate. I unfortunately don't have it, zoomed in or whatever. So if you guys want, maybe Isaiah, if you want to get kind of that zoom in for me, feel free to. I appreciate that. But these are the games that are going to be coming up for week 4. So without further ado, let's get into these games because, we're getting to about an hour and 20 minutes here on the program. So tomorrow, well, actually physically today now here, we're going to have an NFC East battle between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Obviously, these two teams really well know each other from the last several years, and Dallas has pretty much have had the Giants' number, I'd say, for the most part. So, I'll go to you first, Isaiah. Who do you have in this game? Obviously, both teams are really, really kind of struggling, kind of from different sides of the ball. I mean, Dallas has been able to score offensively a decent amount, but their defense has not been great. The Giants, I would say, they've had their offense being able to score a little bit more, but it's all about consistency. It's all about specifically about, oh, that's actually a lot better of a slate. I appreciate that one. But I'm gonna go, if you want me to go first, I can go first. I'm gonna go with Dallas here. I think it's gonna be close. I think that Daniel Jones, after the last couple of weeks, kind of falls off a bit. I think that the Dallas defense finally has the game. Something tells me specifically always play well, especially in New York. I think they're going to cause some turnovers. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Cowboys as well. I don't trust that Giants offense. They've been very sporadic this season. The Cowboys offense is playing well. It's just that their defense is getting gashed. And Mike Zimmer, I mean, I don't know why Mike McCarthy hired him. Did he not see what Mike Zimmer did in his last year in Minnesota, where the defense, which is his calling card, they were awful in his last year. So I don't know why he hired him. It made no sense. Parsons is like he's seemingly out of place, which makes no sense. But I think for this game, the Cowboys are playing a Giants offense that really doesn't threaten anybody. Like they don't really have that threat. Malik Neighbors maybe, but outside of him, you don't really have that threat in the running game and all the other weapons as well. So I'm going to go with Dallas, but like you, I'm going to go. I think it's a close game. I think Dallas wins a close one. I think this comes down to the fourth quarter. But I think Daniel Jones makes a late mistake to give the Cowboys the win.
Sounds about right. Yeah, it doesn't scream to you like a 21-16 type of game, like a really kind of like dud, but in a way, but also kind of exciting at the same time because both defenses haven't been great, but it's also becoming to like the Dallas offense can score, but it's just been very erratic from both teams the last couple of weeks. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens. All right, now we have a NFC South battle. I think it's gonna be a really fun, fascinating game here. We got the New Orleans Saints coming off of a tough loss against the Philadelphia Eagles, going to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons. And this is a tough game because we have two quarterbacks pretty much in division, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. Oh, man. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think that, they're at home. I think that, they really played well against the Chiefs last week. They came up a little bit short. Raheem Morris has, I'd say, done a pretty good, solid job so far with the team. I think that Kirk Cousins typically plays well during the 1 o'clock slate. I know that the Saints obviously had a really good first couple of weeks, but I think that they're in for another letdown of a week. I think that Falcons defense has been pretty impressive. They've been able to cause a decent amount of turnovers. Derek Carr has been prone to turn the ball over. So I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I'm going to say they win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons as well. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it comes down to the wire. I think that you have these two quarterbacks who are playing at a surprising level right now. The Kirk Cousins has been playing well. Derek Carr's been playing well despite the stinker last game. And then the defenses can get after the quarterback. So I think it's two evenly matched teams. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. It comes down to the last possession, and I think the Falcons march down the field to kick a game-winning field goal.
Now we have the Bengals, the winless Bengals. Who would have thought after 3 weeks taking on the team that was just winless that got their first win, the Carolina Panthers. And Andy Dalton is going to start once again against his former team. Now, with the Bengals specifically, this is a tough one because you would think at first hand that the Bengals would be just a much better team. But then you also have that trap game feel where, The Bengals obviously need to get that win, but Andy Dalton is facing against them. He had a really, really good week last week. But you also think that there's just no way that Joe Burrow does this and loses a fourth straight game. He's been playing well the last couple weeks, but it just became down to the defense. I think I'm going to go with the Bengals here, and I think it's because the defense just has to get something going. I think that Andy Dalton, I don't trust him to have another like 300 plus type of game, especially if Andy Dalton goes against them. I think that the Bengals kind of have a little bit of a game plan of kind of what's to expect here. So I think we're going to go with the Bengals here. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly type of game. I'm going to say it's going to be like 23-16. But I think that they're going to have at least enough to finally get their first one of the season.
Ben, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with the Panthers to beat the Bengals and send Cincinnati to 0-4. And then everybody's going to be panicking about Joe Burrow and the Bengals if they haven't already. But I think that this is, it's at Carolina. Andy Dalton going up against his former team. He wants that revenge. He's going to be up to try to go and have a massive game against his former team. I just don't trust that Bengals defense. Their secondary looks lost. Their linebackers look lost. They kind of remind me of Philly last year, where it didn't matter what quarterback you were going up against. Like those quarterbacks would just torch them because their secondary and their defense was just totally lost. So I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think the Panthers win it. I probably would say by like a touchdown. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think Burrow puts up points. I think Dalton puts up points. I just don't trust the Bengals to get a stop. And also keep in mind, the Bengals offensive line has been decimated by injuries. Trent Brown, one of their starting tackles, he's out for the year. Yep, he's out for the year with an injury. So that's a big blow. And the thing with the Panthers is they can get after the quarterback a little bit. So expect those edge rushers to be in Burrow's face all day.
Okay, we got the Rams coming off of a massive win against the Niners last week. A depleted Rams team, by the way. They're taking on the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. Now, I look at this game as well, and I'm less like, well, obviously, if the Rams are fully healthy, I'd probably go with them. And they might have enough specifically against a team like the Chicago Bears, in which Caleb Williams has been turning the ball over at a really high rate so far in his early tenure with the team. So, with that being said, I'm going to go and trust the veteran here. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think they're going to pull this game out. Kyren Williams has obviously been Matt Stafford's safety blanket so far. He had a really good week last week. He's just been a really good overall playmaker. And I know that Cooper Kupp probably won't be back and Puka Nacua won't be back, but I think that they're going to use enough specifically kind of around, guys like Demarcus Robinson. It's, Tutu Atwell, maybe some guys step up. But I think the Rams are going to pull this game out. I just don't trust Caleb Williams so far. Even in the games that he threw for over 300 yards, but the turnovers really concern me. And I'm going to go with the guy currently right now that is more prone to not turn the ball over, at least right now, and that is Matt Stafford. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams as well. I think the Rams win this one, and I think they win it ugly. I think that the Caleb Williams, he's going to have a couple turnovers. That this Rams team, they don't have Aaron Donald, but what they have is guys that are going after the quarterback and getting turnovers left and right. And Sean McVay is a really good offensive coach. He's a genius. And, I don't trust Matt Eberflus as well. I don't trust him to not get out coached by Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is going to have a game plan to be able to, dice up that Bears defense. And that Bears defense, sadly, has not been able to generate a lot of pressure. So that also plays to the Rams well as well. So give me the Rams to win this game.
All right, this might be one of the best games of the weekend slate. We got the undefeated, who would have thought, Minnesota Vikings, and with their vaunted defense going against Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers. Now, that's obviously an assumption. The 2-1 Green Bay Packers, both teams are coming off of really impressive games, scoring a ton of points as of late as well, too. Both scoring 30-plus points in their last game. It's at Lambeau Field. I like the way that the Matt LaFleur and that team has been doing. And if there's any type of corner that's going to solve Brian Flores, I might be LaFleur. And I know that obviously I think the Vikings defense is going to be good in this one. But I think that since they're at home, give me the Packers to pull this game out, but I think it's going to be really close. And I think it could come down to like a game-winning field goal. So go me the Packers here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting game. Two teams that you don't expect to be in this situation, but here they are. The Vikings defense, very good. The Packers defense has been very good as well. I think this is going to be a defensive showdown. I think I could see, Ben, this being a game where it's like a low scoring game and it comes down to the wire because I think both defenses are going to get takeaways. I think both defenses are going to get after the quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Packers because they're at home. The Vikings have generally not played well at Lambeau Field. They've always struggled there. And I think that Malik Willis, the thing with the Vikings is their run defense has not been that good despite their defense being good. So I could see the Packers with their style of play, the heavy run, just running all over the Vikings. And keep in mind, this is Aaron Jones going back to his former team or going back to his former home to play. So he could have that revenge factor in mind as well. So I'm going to go with the Packers, but I think it's going to be a close game.
All right, we got another division type of game. I feel like week before it's been just division game, after division game. But I mean, that's good. That's good, obviously, for the league. We got the 0-3 Jacksonville Jaguars. They're obviously trying to get a win against the 2-1 Houston Texans. Now, obviously, the Texans got their doors blown off last game against the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't know specifically about Joe Mixon's health right now because obviously Joe Mixon is a massive part of their offense. This is tough because the Jaguars can be playing desperate. And Houston obviously has been good, but I don't know if they've been great in the first 3 weeks. They obviously are 2-1. Oh man. Something tells me that Jacksonville's due. I don't know what it is. If you're 0-3 and, I think around the league, we've kind of seen that in the league so far. I mean, heck, who would have thought that Carolina was going to beat the Raiders in this overall one? And CJ Stroud's been playing well in the first couple weeks, but not I would say great, kind of under his standards. But I'm not gonna go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just the way that they've been looking right now. I kind of try to trick you there in a way. I think going 0-4, like you said with the Bengals. I think the Jags go to 0-4. Just between the way that the offense has been really up and down and shaking, their defense has not been great. I think that CJ's going to absolutely torch their defense, and they're going to have a much better game to bounce back of after that blowout that they had against Minnesota. So going with the Texans, and they're going to go to 3-1.
I think this is going to be a close game, like you mentioned, because these division games, they always are close. They're never blowouts. And, all these teams in each division, they know each other very well. They know their strengths, their weaknesses. So I think it's going to be a close game despite the records by both teams. I don't know what's gone on with Trevor Lawrence. It's been just crazy how he's gone down so fast. But I got to agree with you. The Texans are at home. If this was in Jacksonville, I probably would pick the Jags, but this is in Houston. The crowd's going to be rocking. Texans are coming off a loss, so they want that. They're going to be mad about that. The Jags have just not played well since last season, where they were. I think they had the best record in the AFC at one point, and they just all went down from there. But CJ, like you said, CJ Stroud's going to torch that defense. The defense has been awful recently. Trayvon Walker, their number 1 overall pick, who they picked over Aiden Hutchinson a few years ago, like that, he's been a massive disappointment there. And I don't know why they picked him, but I think the Jags, sadly, their struggles continue, and the Texans make me look like a fool for picking the Jags to win the AFC South. And I think they pushed the Jags to 0-4.
All right, we got the 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Indianapolis. Indianapolis has a back-to-back home game. And the Colts got their first win last week against the Chicago Bears. For me, I'm going to keep running out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like the way that their defense has been playing. Their offense is doing just enough right now. And Indianapolis currently right now is the turnovers. Anthony Richardson has been turning the ball over at a massive rate. I mean, 6 interceptions in the first 3 weeks, 3 interceptions in week 2, and 2 last game despite them winning. And I think with Pittsburgh, as long as TJ Watt's out there, he's going to disrupt a lot on that the front offensive line for the Colts, and their secondary as well too. So between that, I'm going to go with the Steelers. They're going to go 4-0 to start the year, and Mike Tomlin, I think, is going to get a ton of praise at least. So kind of under him, kind of given the overall expectations for their team. So I'm going to go with the Steelers.
I'm gonna go with the Colts. I think that the Colts, the Steelers are due for a loss. I feel like their offense has just been doing just enough, but they've also been kind of getting lucky a little bit. The Broncos game, that was very close. The last game they played, they've played a lot of close games, and when you play a lot of close games, you're due for a loss in one of these close games. And the Colts, yeah, Anthony Richardson, like he's been turning over the ball a lot, but also Anthony Richardson is a guy that can run and also a guy that can throw it deep. And the thing to hurt these great defenses is the guy that can throw the ball down the field, and he has that. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think Pittman has a big game in this football game. Jonathan Taylor, I think, will get shut down, but I think it's going to come down to, because both of these two defenses are very good. It's going to come down to who makes the less mistakes, and I just don't trust Justin Fields. I think him and Anthony Richardson are kind of like the same, where they're not really that good quarterbacks, and it comes down to the playmakers, and I trust the playmakers of the Colts more than I do, and Shane Steichen's play calling more than I do with the Steelers. So give me the Colts.
All right. We got the Denver Broncos, who had their first win last week against Tampa Bay. They're taking on the New York Jets after the Jets had a massive win against the Patriots on Thursday Night Football last week. This could be a really interesting game because the Broncos, like you mentioned, they have a really good defense. They're going to be going against Aaron Rodgers. The Jets obviously scoring 24 points. I don't know if that's an overall outlier in terms of the way the Patriots defense played as a whole in this one, but the running attack, shockingly enough, for the Jets didn't do much. Now, if it was in Denver, I'm going to go with Denver, but it's at MetLife, and I think as a whole that the Jets are going to do enough to win this one. I think the Broncos, they will kind of keep it close, but I think the Jets are going to do enough because they just have the much better quarterback, and he will prove why on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jets win this game. It's in New York. Aaron Rodgers is better than Bo Nix. Even I can't say Bo Nix is better, but Aaron Rodgers is better.
You'd be a fool of yourself to even say that, even as a talking discussion.
Right. Bo Nix, like the thing is with him is that he hasn't really impressed in terms of like as a passer. He's been really good as a runner, but he's been very like shaky as a passer, and that's the problem. The problem with the Jets is they've got a great secondary, and if they shut down the run game, force you to pass, that's going to be a lot of turnovers for Bo Nix and that Broncos offense. So I'm going to go with the Jets, and I think it's going to be more. I think it's going to be more lopsided than you think. I think Aaron Rodgers, with him dicing up the Patriots defense, that was very impressive. I think he's going to be able to dice up the Broncos defense and that secondary. And I think the Jets defense get a couple turnovers and really make this game more lopsided than it's expected. So I'm going to go with the Jets.
Okay, we have the NFC wildcard rematch game from last year. This upcoming Sunday, we have the 2-1 Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is a game that's really fascinating because you have two teams. You got one team that is extremely banged up. You might not have Devontae Smith for this one, and you're already not going to have A.J. Brown. Your quarterback has not looked great for the first 3 weeks. He did not look great whatsoever when they faced each other the last time in Tampa Bay. The Bucs obviously just scored 7 points against a very good defense last week against the Broncos. The Eagles had a pretty good defensive game against the Saints, who scored a ton of points the first 2 weeks. So you look at both of these teams right now, and I think that they're trying to kind of get themselves back into kind of their dominant winning ways. So with that being said, I think with the amount of injuries that Philly has right now, and I picked Tampa Bay crazy enough last week to beat Denver, but I think that Tampa bounces back. I don't think it's gonna be a similar game as like the Walker game last year, but I think that the Eagles are gonna have a really, really hard time moving the football without a lot of their playmakers. Tampa's defense is going to really key in on Saquon Barkley in terms of stopping the run, and they're really going to have to force Jalen Hurts, who's really struggled so far as a passer, and to throwing the football and to really essentially having other guys step up like Jahan Dotson and Dallas Garner and other guys. And I don't know if he's going to be able to elevate them just because a lot of the time with Jalen Hurts, he's really does well when he has a lot of his guys out there. I don't know specifically he can really do that when some of his guys kind of go down, and they also might not have Lane Johnson too. So that's another thing to take into effect as well too. So it's just a lot going on right now, and then with the state in terms of their coaching and stuff like that, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to bounce back in this one in Tampa Bay.
I agree. I'm going to go with the Bucks as well. I don't trust Nick Sirianni. I don't trust Jalen Hurts, especially with Devontae Smith out and AJ Brown out, and potentially Lane Johnson being out. That's a massive blow. I think the Bucks are able to shut down the running game and then key in on Jalen Hurts. I don't think they're able to move the football. I think that defensively for the Eagles, I still don't really trust them either, because I think that game against the Saints had a lot of chances to put up a lot of points, but they just shot themselves in the foot so many times. They went for it on fourth down, I think 3-4 times early in that game, and that really cost them. They had a couple turnovers late that really cost them. Realistically, they should have put up at least 20, 25 points in that game, and that should have been a blowout, but they let Philly hang around. But with this Bucks team, Todd Bowles, he runs a really stout defensive system. Baker, you got Mike Evans, you've got all the Chris Godwin as well that can stretch the field. Yeah. I just think the Bucks offense will be too much for that Eagles team in general.
All right, we got a really fascinating game here. We got a young stud, at least from the way that he played last week, against Kyler Murray, who I think all in all, at least for the first 3 weeks, has been playing pretty solid football. Now the Cardinals, I feel like the Cardinals have had a ton of home games late to start the season. Maybe it's just me. They just had one against the Lions last week. This should be a really fascinating game. I'm gonna go here with the Cardinals, but I think it's gonna be close. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is gonna have kind of a recipe game like he just did last week. And I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. has been playing well. James Conner's been playing really, really well. The Cardinals, for most of all their games, even in some of their losses, they've all been close in. So if they can keep it close, specifically, I think it's a really 50-50 type of coin flip overall type of game. And if there's any type of team that I think can maybe kind of stymie the overall team from that Washington side, I think it might be the Cardinals. I think that the Lions, they have a very good overall offense. They only scored 20 points. They only lost by 10 points against them. So I'm going to go with my gut here. I haven't really picked the Cardinals a lot so far this season, but I'm going to pick them in this overall weekend here. I think it's going to be an up and down type of game, but I'm going to go with Arizona.
I think this is going to be a shootout in the desert. Both of these two teams are just evenly matched. They have young, dynamic quarterbacks that are really good at running and throwing. They aren't really that good defensively, and they have really good playmakers as well. So I think it's going to be a shootout. I'm going to go with I think it's going to be like a third in the 30s type of a game between these two teams. And I think that you're going to see a lot of points being scored. And I think both of these two quarterbacks put on a show, Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals just because they're the more seasoned, experienced team. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has a big day going up against those Commanders corners.
Their secondary. Sorry to cut you off. The secondary is abysmal. They're so bad. If Marvin Harrison Jr., think about it right now, is on your fantasy team, pick him up. Well, I wouldn't say pick him up, because obviously you can't really pick him up at this point in time. But really to start him, because he is going to go off. I mean, if there's any week, the Commanders, Jamar Chase really need a massive week. He had 2 tutties. Kyler Murray, start him. They're gonna have a big game.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of these two offenses are going to go off, but the Cardinals are just more experienced. It's in Arizona. Give me the Cardinals to win it close. I'm going to say 30. I think it's going to be 37-30. I think it's going to be one of those shootout games in the NFL.
All right, so it's going to be a high one. All right, now we have both of our games. both of our teams going at it. So this should be really interesting. Obviously, the Patriots coming off of a 21-point defeat last week. You guys are obviously coming off of a really tough defeat after being up a couple scores against the Rams. So somebody has to win. Now, obviously, with my team, our offense is still very much work in progress. You're going against a defense that I obviously know that's very banged up, but it's obviously a much better defense. That the Patriots are going up against, very similar like as the Jets are. So right now, the Patriots are 10.5-point underdogs. This is one of the first times, and it feels like forever. I don't know if any even time in the Dynasty era that they even were underdogged by that much. But essentially, given that specifically, I think they're definitely going to cover that. If anything, I think that the Patriots aren't going to win that game, but they're going to take the points. 10.5, I think, is a lot, especially with the Niners very banged up. They don't have Christian McCaffrey once again. If they don't have Debo, if Kittle's very limited, if anything, if he's going to play. But they're going across country. They're taking on the NFC defending champs that were just in the Super Bowl. I cannot go against the Patriots as much as I love them dearly to my heart. I think that the Niners win, but I think that the Patriots are going to keep it close and they're going to play tough because I think that the way that they play defensively last week, I think that those guys are going to be hungry. I think they're going to be ready to fight. But I just think that the talent, even though the talent is very depleted on the San Francisco side, it's a much better depleted overall offensive talent than when you have with the Patriots 17. The Patriots are rebuilding. The Niners are trying to compete for another Super Bowl. So give me the Niners here. I'm going to go 27-16. Actually, you know what? 27-17. That's my score.
I agree. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that 10.5-point spread. I think that, for the Niners, the problem with us is like we haven't been able to get pressure. And this is a big task because, the Patriots offensive line is banged up. They're not good. And, if you can't get pressure against the Rams and their backups, well, like you better get pressure against, the Patriots and their dismal offensive line. So I feel like this is kind of like a get well game for the Niners where, they need the Patriots in right now. It's a perfect time to have them. New England's offensive line is not good whatsoever. I do think you guys will be able to run the football though, because the Niners haven't been able to stop the run this season. Hargraves is out for the year, so that's definitely a big blow for us in the middle of that defense. I do think you will be able to run the football. I don't know if you'll be able to put up a lot of points just because I don't trust that offensive line of New England's to hold up against the Niners, especially with that D-line being hungry and angry after what happened last week. So I'm going to go with the Niners to win. It's at Levi's, so it's cross country for the Patriots. I think the Niners win this game like 30 to, I'll say probably like 20. I'm gonna go 24 to 17. I think it's a lot closer than expected because I just don't trust the Niners secondary right now. I don't trust our defensive line to get pressure. And then the offense, like you mentioned, is banged up. Offensive line is banged up. No Christian McCaffrey, no Debo Samuel. Brock Purdy's gonna have to carry the Niners again. He's already dealing with like a minor back injury, so that's something to watch for. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than expected. I think Patriots are able to run the football, but give me the Niners to win. They're more experienced and it's at home.
Best of luck. It should be a lot of fun, and we can't wait to recap this one next week. All right, so that game is done. We're going to go to the Chiefs and the Chargers. Now, this game, it really comes down to can Justin Herbert play? Because if he does play, I'm not saying specifically that the Chargers are going to win, even if Herbert does play. But I think this is an overall entertainment level and the factor of it. Mahomes and Herbert, every single time that they face each other, just like Mahomes and Burrow, it just seems like they're always close games, regardless of how good or how bad that Chargers team is. Now, the Chiefs have just had and owned the Chargers number, despite the fact of some of the games being very, very good. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. They're going to go to 4-0 on the season, whether people like it or not. And Travis Kelce has not been great. kind of given his standards. Patrick Mahomes, given his standards, he hasn't looked great. He's looked fine, but he hasn't looked like the Patrick Mahomes that we really know and love. They've been able to get some turnovers. A lot of the times the teams against them that they've been facing, look at the Falcons with the 4th and 1, the Bengals the week before giving up the pass interference. I'm not saying they've gotten lucky, but like they've kind of gotten like the brace on their end, and they've been able to kind of pull these games out. And it's like when you're essentially facing the Chiefs, they kind of remember the old Patriots teams where it's just like they can kind of win sometimes, kind of despite their overall play, if other teams are just stupid, right? So I think that the Chiefs win this one. I'm gonna go 28-14. I think that even if Herbert plays, he's going to be very, very limited. He's not going to be feeling the same, that he is specifically. And I think, Andy Reid is just going to, get these guys going, and they're going to keep on winning. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
This is going to be a heavyweight fight. You got Andy Reid versus Jim Harbaugh. You got, Patrick Mahomes, and if Herbert plays, versus Justin Herbert. And then the weapons for both sides are just very good. The defense, you got Chris Jones, Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack on the other side. I'm going to go with the Chargers in an upset, Ben. I think that Justin Herbert plays, and I think we get a really good game. And I think at the end, the Chargers are going to have the lead, and they're going to steal it by doing what they did against the Raiders, which is running the football, having a long drives, keeping Mahomes off the field, and that defense with the Chiefs' offensive line not really being that great. I think Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack feast on that offensive line. So I think even with Justin Herbert not being 100%, I think J.K. Dobbins has a big day. And I think that the running game is going to carry the running game, and the defense is going to carry the Chargers. And I think Herbert just has to do enough just to put the Chargers out on top. So give me the Chargers in an upset.
Okay, this is going to be one of the most ugliest games of the weekend. If you have any plans, on your Sunday, if you want to go apple picking, if you want to go out with some friends, and there's a 425 slate and your team might not be playing, if you don't want to be betting and not watch some of these other teams, do not watch this game at all. You're having two teams specifically. You have one that just lost to arguably one of the worst teams in football, in the Carolina Panthers. And you have another team specifically that is just in complete disarray. They just lost to a awful, awful New York Giants type of team. They let Daniel Jones out there look like vintage Tom Brady. No offense to Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, but you got two teams that are just It's like, obviously you have the Chiefs and you have the Chargers. You obviously my Patriots are playing against your team. I'm so glad that game specifically is in the same time slot as our game, Isaiah, because if there's nothing else on it, it wasn't the Chiefs and Chargers as well, I would not be watching this game in the 10-foot pole. But if we're going to just pick this game just for kicks here, oh, man. Oh, God. Oh, man. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think that they bounced back against this team. The offense for the Browns is just a completely disarray. I haven't really liked with how they've been doing. Antonio Pierce also had some massive, crazy comments after the game and their loss last week, and I think that it's kind of a coach that can get these guys fired up. And I think that, they're back at home. They don't have to leave again. I think they pull this game out, but it's going to be like one of those really ugly games, to say the least. I just do not trust either team to let him move the football at will consistently. So if I have to pick a game in this toilet fest, I guess if you want to call it, I'm going to go with the Raiders here. How about you?
I'm going to go with the Browns, but I agree. This is going to be one of the most ugliest games of the week. I just don't trust the Raiders. Defensively, they've been awful. Offensively, they've been awful. I mean, both of these two teams, the Browns, at least defensively, they're decent. But both of these two teams' offense, like their turnovers, they give up a lot of sacks. They can't run the ball. So it's it's like both teams are like the same in a way. But the Browns are just better defensively than anything. And I trust Kevin Stefanski more than I do with Antonio Pierce. I think that like the thing with the Raiders is they should be 0-3 right now. Like the Ravens gave that game away to the Raiders late. And then they lost to the Panthers, which is just pathetic. And let Andy Dalton and that, oh my gosh, that week. Like I wish we had James on the show because I mean, like I know he's working, but good lord, like I like that was just pathetic. Like the way that they lost.
If you were a Raiders fan, I couldn't even imagine your rant. Essentially, if your team let Andy freaking Dalton going in, back it up after Bryce Young essentially beat you up for a long time, and then just shredding your team for like 300 plus yards. No offense to Andy Dalton, man, he made that defense look like it was, I don't know what the hell it was. Essentially, it was just crap, I guess.
Yeah, like I mean that wasn't even like that Raider game wasn't even like close. It was a blowout. Like it looked close with the score late, but if you actually watch it, the Panthers were up like 30-7 at one point in that game. Like their defense was just getting carved up like by all these other teams. The Raiders actually made their defense look so good in that game, and Gardner Minshew turned the ball over like 3 times. Like I just can't go with the Raiders. Sadly, Ben, I think Antonio Pierce is going to get one and done. Like, I just think that he's not that good of a coach. I think he works better in college. Like, he's like a rah motivator, but those guys work better in college than the NFL. And with the Browns, I think Myles Garrett with that beat up Raiders offensive line, I think he's going to feast in this game.
I could definitely see that. Like I said, these teams both are heavily flawed for sure on both sides. So it's really a coin flip if anything of the game. But we go from this game to maybe the best overall matchup of the weekend. I cannot wait for this one. You got the 3-0 Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen playing like an MVP candidate, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who really exploded out for their offensive burst last game in Dallas against the Cowboys. Now I know that the Ravens are 1-2. But they've been close in a lot of these games. Essentially, the 2 losses that they had, obviously it came down to a foot in the first game against the Chiefs, and then it came down to essentially collapsing essentially in the second half against the Raiders. So, like the Ravens, I don't think are a bad team theoretically. I think that they're 1-2, but they're definitely gonna get things going for sure. And I know that obviously the Bills are 3-0, but they're kind of in need for a letdown, right? They've been scoring 30-plus points consistently. Joe Brady's been so great with Josh Allen. I'm going to go with the Ravens here. I think that the Bills are going to have a great one. It's going to be an offensive showdown, I think, between both of these teams. I think Derrick Henry is going to be a massive difference maker. And I think that the Jaguars' last game just did not get anything going. Their offense just was so stagnant, and it was just very, very easy for the Bills to, kind of take control. And really, the Dolphins game, as great as the Bills have been in the first 3 games, the way the offense has been, they've kind of gotten a bit fortunate, I guess, if anything, because Tua kind of went down that game. And then they got a back quarterback, and the Jaguars have been very, very broken up. So the last 2 weeks, they really haven't faced a offensive attack at consistent rate, and I'm be facing one against the Ravens here. We're going to go on Sunday Night Football on the road, and I'm going to go with my gut here. I'm going to go with the Ravens. Somebody you.
Well, I just checked the weather, Ben. It's going to be there's going to be a 60% chance of rain in this game, so I think this game
Even
could be
more.
ugly.
Give me the Ravens. That's part of the factor because they're a run-heavy type of team. The Bills have been, I think, so far this season have been more of a throwing type of team. So I'm going to go with that's even more of my case too.
Exactly. This plays more towards the Ravens. It's at Baltimore. It's going to be loud and rocking there. It's going to probably be raining heavily in this game. And when it has this type of weather game, like where it's raining heavily, it's the best way to win is running and defense. And that plays to the Ravens' strength. They're really good defensively. They're really good running the football. And the Bills, like you mentioned, they are a high-powered throwing attack. So I think that gets shut down by the weather and that Baltimore defensive line. I think Josh Allen is going to struggle in this game. And then I think Lamar, with him being able to run the football, Derrick Henry running the football behind him, and him like just constantly lobbing passes to Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I think that's going to get the job done for Baltimore. So give me the Ravens to win. I think it's going to be a low scoring, close game because of the elements.
Okay, we have a Monday Night Football matchup, which, if you remember, Isaiah, we had this same matchup last year during the regular season. It was the game that the Dolphins were up by 2 scores, which I believe they were up by 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins completely choked this game away. I remember very, very vividly watching them on Monday Night Football, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world did the Dolphins just lose that? Like, how? Completely. Now, with the way that this Titans team has been playing, they're 0-3. They're taking on the Dolphins right now that are 1-2, and they might have a third string quarterback. And Raheem Mostert might be out again, so they might have one of their starters out. So, as much as I want to go with Miami here, and Will Levis, obviously, he's turned the ball over a lot too. So, he's kind of due for a win. Oh man, it's really sucks when you have backups and stuff in because it's kind of a lot. It's a lot harder to gauge than you think. But since it's in Miami and it's at their stadium, I think they kind of remember how that game kind of finished last year. Um, and I think that the Titans go to 0-4. I think that I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep their quarterback is going to be able to hold on to that football consistently. And I know they obviously have some weapons and stuff around there, but I think if Tyler Huntley comes in, I think that they might be using more of a running game factor. Maybe they get some of the playmakers around like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. I know it's a lot harder when you don't have Tua because Tua really is a much better passer than the guys they have right now. So if there was any other quarterback in another team currently right now taking on the Dolphins, I'd be going with that team. But the Titans are just in that much of disarray that I'm going to go against them. I'm going to go with the Dolphins here.
Thank you, NFL schedulers, for giving us 2 Monday Night Football games, and both of those 2 games are at the same, or pretty much the same time frame, and not like one is like in the afternoon, the other one is at night. Because if we had to just singly focus on this game, I'd probably be like, you talk about the Raiders and the Browns game being ugly. You talk about Will Levis versus Tyler Huntley. No disrespect to Tyler Huntley, but come on, man. Like this is gonna be like such an ugly game. The good part is that the Dolphins actually have some like good weapons with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but the quarterback play just makes you want to vomit. And oh my gosh, I could see this game being like just so much turnovers and so much sacks because both of these 2 quarterbacks suck at throwing the football. So, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with the Dolphins because they're at home. Huntley is a lot better than Levis. He's got the weapons. But I think this is going to be like a turnover-filled game. And we're going to be like, afterwards, we're all just going to be like, what did we just watch? Because I think this is going to be that ugly, to be honest. Thank God there's another game, please.
It'll be like this past week's Jaguars-Bills game, but just more of an ugly suck fest than just a blowout. It's just be like a game of like, all right, can we please watch something else? That'll be essentially it. And then thank God you have, like you mentioned, thank God we have 2 games. I know a lot of people have kind of like bitched and complained that the 2 games kind of overlapped, but in a weekend Monday night slate like this, you need to have a better game, and this is what we have here. We got the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks. With the way that the Mike McDonald's been doing over there has been great so far. Geno Smith and the offense have been cooking, to say the least. They're taking on the Lions, and the Lions are 2-1. They got a big win on the road last week. Now, this is a really good one. and I picked the Seahawks to beat the Lions in Detroit last year. They were there in week 2. So I'm not going to go this one here for the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Lions, though. I think that the Lions are going to get the revenge this year, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that the Lions have corners now, and I think that they're going to be able to essentially match up against the playmakers against the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks kind of due for a loss. They've been just scoring a lot of points at will recently. And, Monday Night Football, I think Geno has a step back type of game. I know he's been kind of really playing at a high level the first couple of weeks. And sometimes when you're up at the mountain for so long, at least for a couple of weeks, then you're kind of due for a little bit of aggression. And, Jared Goff and Monroe kind of got going last week. So they might start cooking a little bit. But it's going to be a close one. And I think that the Lions are going to score just enough to win this one at home to go to 3-1 on the season. I'm going to go 30-17 in favor of the Lions.
I think this is going to be a really close game. Mike McDonald, he's done a phenomenal job with that Seahawks defense. I've been very impressed. They look kind of what they used to look like under Pete Carroll when they had that really good defense. They're hitting hard. They're creating a lot of turnovers. They're getting after the quarterback. It's been very fun to watch. And then on the other side, the Lions are a complete team. Offensively, we know what they can do running the football. Jared Goff making plays with his arm and his legs. And then their defense, Aiden Hutchinson getting after the quarterback. I think this is going to be a really balanced game between these two teams. I think it comes down to the wire. Give me Detroit. They're at home. The crowd's gonna be rocking there. I think late in the game, that crowd noise will get to Geno Smith, and it's gonna be a big factor why the Lions win the game.
All right. Well, that concludes our slate of picks for week 4. We will talk about next week on our next week's show of how we did in terms of those picks, and we'll get into week 5, as specifically the calendar will be flipping onto October, so that'll be also exciting as well too. So we cannot wait for that. I will say before we conclude tonight's show and our final thoughts, I know that you obviously wanted to talk about Bryce Young and the Panthers. And the Panther situation. So, and there were reports actually, funny enough, about this not so long ago, in which there has been a lot of kind of trade rumors out there about potentially the kind of return that Bryce Young type of trade would look like. But my question for you is, what do you feel like the future is with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers? Because I've been hearing from Dave Canales saying that he might be getting back in action down the road. We still feel like that he has ability to still play in this league. And the thing is, with Bryce Young, he's just very small, kind of coming in out of college, and he might just be kind of that Johnny Manziel type of quarterback, or kind of that quarterback that prototypical, but he just doesn't get it to that next level, despite the fact that he was high, kind of recruitly talented, kind of coming out of college. So what do you think about that overall kind of situation real quick before we call it a night?
I think Bryce Young is done in Carolina. I think that once you get benched, especially if you're a top pick, I think that just shattered his confidence and his trust in the Panthers. And I think that that really destroyed the relationship between those two teams. And you saw it after or when the Panthers went to Vegas and just completely smacked the Raiders. Andy Dalton he made Bryce Young look like a bust. I mean, Bryce Young and that offense was struggling so bad. And then Dalton comes in there with the same weapon, same offense, and just lights it up for 30-plus points. So I think Bryce Young is done. I think he has to move on. He has to get to a team where the coach is going to support him, the coach is going to want him, and the coach is going to want to work with him. And I think that if I had to list some teams that could get after him, I would really want to see him go to maybe be a backup for a year, Sam Darnold did, and some of these other guys have done, and just resurrect his career like that. I think a place that I would like to see him is maybe Miami. I think Miami would be a good fit with their weapons that he has. He doesn't have to do all this stuff for the like he did with the Panthers. I think in terms of another team is I wouldn't mind, honestly, Ben, if I'm the Raiders, I wouldn't mind him because he would have that trusted weapon with Devontae Adams to throw the football to. So I wouldn't mind, and Brock Bowers as well, and he's been amazing for the Raiders the first couple of weeks of the season. So I think
What
those.
about, hear me
Yeah,
out on this one. What about a competition with Will Levis in Tennessee? Because you really don't have really much outside of that. Maybe that kind of gets Will Levis kind of on track a little bit. You have kind of two younger quarterbacks where they have a ton of promise, but they're having a really hard time kind of getting to that next level. And Bryce Callahan has kind of shown with some of these guys that he could work with quarterbacks, and maybe there could be something there. So I know, obviously, know that he probably doesn't want to go to another rebuilding type of team, but he has some guys around him, and if Will Levis somehow got benched or he got hurt for some odd reason, you have kind of a backup that could come in and maybe kind of prove himself to maybe take over his job, despite him maybe going down or something like that. So maybe that could be also an option as well too.
Yeah, I like it. I think that if he did, he would have like a fast track to being a starter in Tennessee if he went there. I just worry though, like, I mean, I want him to be with a good offensive mind and a guy that can develop quarterbacks, and then have at least some weapons around him that he could throw the football to. Because I think the biggest thing with him is he needs to rebuild his confidence. Honestly, I wouldn't.
What about Denver?
But they got Bo Nix already though. They have Bo Nix and Zach Wilson.
But the thing is that Zach Wilson, you're not expecting specifically him to have any game action unless he's like an emergency guy. And Bo Nix, I mean, they're obviously putting a lot of stock into, but kind of a situation like that where you have like a quarterback that's starting, but it's just like, is it the long-term answer, right? Look kind of around the league, with like the Jets, for instance, Aaron Rodgers, we essentially kind of know what's at stake there. With the Patriots, they already have kind of their draft guy coming in with Drake May. The Commanders, they already have Jaden Daniels. There's some guys that are around the league that you're just like, I don't know yet, right? So you can kind of bring those kind of guys in. Bryce Young can kind of come in. A lot of people are talking about the Giants, right? The Giants, Daniel Jones, what his situation is, the fifth-year option. I don't really like it over there because the Giants' offensive line is going to get him absolutely clobbered. I could already kind of see that from a mile away. So, the thing is about it, who's going to want to have a trade back for him, and really, what does he want to do? Does he because right now, personally, I mean, from a lot of the practices and stuff like that, the guy looks like he is down in the dumps consistently. That's the thing. It's like he just does not. It's like when you look at the memes and stuff specifically, just like a guy that's just like out there and it's just like, here we go again. That is Bryce Young right now, and honestly, I don't blame him one bit.
Did you see that video that I think it was the day after he got benched where one fan, like, it's so funny, like one fan is out there watching practice and like Bryce Young is walking by and he yells like, "Hey Bryce, can you autograph this for me?" And Bryce comes over to autograph and he just looks so down. He looks like he's about to I felt so bad for the guy. Like, oh my gosh, like that video just like shook my heart. And I mean like the Panthers, like, come on, you have like every team, like people want to go see practices and you have just one fan coming to watch your practice. That's when
I shouldn't even be laughing, honestly. Like that's like, yeah, that sucks.
How about the Cowboys? I know they have Trey Lance, but I don't know if I don't think they have Cooper Rush, but I mean, it could be a place where like that Bryce comes in and develops, and I think that's what he needs. He needs to sit on the bench, develop under a good offensive mind, and then maybe there's like an
what about the Vikings? Maybe it was I mean, who's their guy? Because Kevin O'Connell, he's a great offensive mind. Sam Darnold, I know, has been playing well, so that kind of be an interesting one, to be honest, too.
Watch out for I could see also the Cowboys, because if this offseason happens where Bill Belichick replaces Mike McCarthy, Belichick is close buddies with Nick Saban, and Nick Saban loves Bryce Young. And so I could see that being like a long-term fit where he's not going to be the starter, but he's going to be the backup, where like Dak Prescott actually has like competent, I'm not saying Cooper Rush is not a competent backup, but he could have someone that, comes in and just be the backup for like the next like 3 to 4 years. And I think it's a perfect fit where Bryce is there, learns from like Bill Belichick, learns from, Dak Prescott, and actually can develop into a competent quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to see specifically how that goes down the road here. But with that being said, guys, that'll be it for the overall conclusion of tonight's program. Before we get into final thoughts, is there anything that you want to announce, Isaiah, in terms of some shows coming up? At least for me specifically, I will say I think Kicking It with Cruz, we will have another one maybe at Monday Night after Monday Night Football is done next week or early next week because there's gonna be a lot of stuff. I really want to get into the MLB playoffs now because this is obviously the last weekend. Hopefully we could do a Batter Up show coming up, you, me, Loro, and kind of preview the MLB postseason. Oh my God! Unfortunately, my Red Sox are done, but it's going to be, and obviously, you obviously when your A stuff. This is obviously kind of the last weekend for baseball, and I can't wait in terms for the playoffs. Which, by the way, and I don't know if you're gonna if we want to get the chance to talk about this, but did you see kind of what's going on with the contingency stuff with the Mets Braves? I mean, the schedule on that where it's two teams that are essentially trying to play for the playoffs. The Mets essentially trying to get in. The Braves essentially are trying to get in. And there's obviously a hurricane that happens this week, and obviously my condolences, my prayers and stuff go to a lot of people down south for that, right? But you look at in the past a little bit a lot of these leagues in terms of something that happens like this, and they have something backed up. There was nothing for this, and now the Mets specifically have to go to Milwaukee. They got to win some games on there, and they have to go back to play against the Braves for doubleheader the day before that the first games of the wild card are supposed to start. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that just, a lot, especially where, I am in the New York market, it was heavily complained about and stuff from a lot of people today. So that was definitely something for sure that I'll take a look at for the weekend. But yeah, all in all, outside of that, final thoughts, great show. And can't wait for a lot of great football this weekend, a lot of fun divisional matchups, to say the least. And like I mentioned with my show personally, Kicking with Cruz, we'll hope to have one next week. And we'll get to some baseball, we'll get into some more football, and much other crap as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, Ben, speaking about the Mets and the Braves, I mean, Monday night is potentially going to be very amazing because you have the Seahawks game, and then we're not even going to mention the Titans and Dolphins because that's going to be ugly. But thank God baseball potentially saved us because think about this. If the Mets lose 2 out of the 3 to the Brewers and the Braves win 2 out of 3 against the Royals, those two teams are going to be tied going into that doubleheader. And I mean, wouldn't it be so Mets if the Mets were to lose both of those 2 doubleheader games and miss the playoffs at the literally the day after the regular season was supposed to conclude? I mean, that would be oh my God, I would feel so bad for the Mets and their fans.
Yeah, I was just there on Sunday, and it legitimately it felt like the place was about to. It was crazy. The overall atmosphere is insane. Even getting on the subway after the game, I was just crammed getting in there. So it's just their fans are just pleading to get in, and I would love to see it for them. I mean, Citi Field was absolutely just electric of an atmosphere on Sunday, and a lot of Met fans were saying it was even louder than some of the games that they had for the playoffs against the Padres last year. That's how loud it was. So if you get the chance to even have that, but then fall short and not making the playoffs after that, oh my God, that would just be absolutely heartbreaking. But like you said, it'd be typically so Mets, kind of given their overall track record. Exactly. So, but anything else that you want to have in your end in terms of show-wise or anything else before we call it a night?
Yeah, so for show-wise, I think, for show-wise, I might do a special show from the Coliseum tomorrow after the A's final game of the Coliseum. So just
I can join you maybe for that.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. Also, we're gonna like you mentioned, we're either gonna do kicking it with Cruz or Batter Up on Monday after the season, the regular season ends, to do a playoff preview and talk about, some managers that potentially got fired, and some changes that happened. I think the Giants might fire Farhan Zaidi, if I'm going to put that out there. I think it's trending that way. Yeah, and then I think we're gonna do extra points sometime. Sometime maybe like a Tuesday night or Wednesday, depending on which, because I am off the next 4 days next week: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So yeah, I'm gonna have more time to do more shows. So definitely.
And we also,
yeah,
really quick before I forget, I think we're gonna have Face Off coming back as well with Taylor.
Yeah,
Coming up with preseason hockey right now, so we're gonna have hockey season coming around. And I did hear you saying off the air that you're going to be going to see Macklin Celebrini, aren't you?
I am. I think next Tuesday they're playing the brand new Utah Hockey Club at the SAP Center.
Awesome.
I got tickets to that game, Ben, for $6, and that's with fees included. So,
wow.
the vibes in San
Jose.
Yeah, right. And the vibes are just, I guess, like the vibes aren't like that great for preseason hockey with everything going around right now. So I can't wait to see, the Sharks they're one of the young, talented, bright future teams, with Celebrini and with Will Smith and all the guys that they have there, the young guys that they have. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. I hope Celebrini plays. I heard he got hurt in one of the games where he got just body check. So hopefully he plays. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that game. And as well as my final thoughts, like you mentioned, it's going to be a crazy weekend in the world of sports. We've got so many great games. We've got
football, we had baseball last weekend.
Ben, I don't know if you mentioned Georgia at Alabama this weekend.
Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
That's going to be the heavyweight fight. I can't wait. And then you talk about the NFL, Niners versus your Patriots. You got Chiefs, Chargers. You got MLB wrapping up. So it's going to be like
Bills, Ravens.
Bills, Ravens, potentially Mets, Braves. One of the games on Monday night with everything at stake. Like, it's just like we always say, like, this is honestly, and not to mention, it's October. And I don't know about you where you live.
The appetizer of what's to come essentially this weekend. So you just buckle up.
And
it's just going to get even more exciting.
Yeah, and one the fall. I mean, I got to give them a shout out, by the way, because I don't think we've talked about them a lot. But I know this is a football show, but how about the Detroit Tigers? I know I picked them to win the division. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
Wow.
That's the Cleveland. But the Tigers were dead. They were like, I think 6 games under 500 on August the 10th. And I was like,
traded Jack Flaherty.
Yep. Traded. And I was telling James,
imagine they still have him.
AJ Hinch is going to get fired. But how about that run? Like, the Tigers are 29-10 since that stretch, and they are now
that's crazy.
Yeah, and now they're in pole position to make the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, Ben, they would be playing the Houston Astros, AJ Hinch's former team.
Sign me up.
Oh, my God, man. But, yeah, how about the Tigers? I mean, Torkelson's been great after he came up. Tarek Skubal, he's going to win the Cy Young. He's been amazing. I'm so glad they didn't trade him, because there were talks of the Tigers to trade him. And I also got to give Scott Harris, their president of baseball ops, a lot of credit, because, he built his team, a lot of young guys there. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come. But, man, Detroit, if they can make the playoffs on August the 10th, they had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. If they can go from that and rally and make the playoffs, I mean, what an incredible story. And I'm rooting for the Tigers. I hope they end up making the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm pulling for them too. I mean, how can you not, especially with the way that things are going? I think that just the Detroit as a city, they would definitely need it. And with the Lions, the way that they've been playing for the last couple of years, I think that it's kind of a very Lions-like for a team that kind of came out of nowhere and kind of came on the scene. And you have a Tigers team that maybe could do the same thing. So we'll have to see about that. Without further ado, guys, thank you guys for joining Kick with I was going to say Kick with Cruz. I always feel like I'm the host just saying that. The Extra Point, as I was the host tonight for Extra Point. Isaiah, thank you for letting me take the helm for that tonight. And we got through a lot of fun stuff. We kind of recapped everything from this past week. We talked about everything coming up for this weekend. and some other stuff from the Bryce Young stuff as well. And we also kind of mix in some little other fun stuff kind of around the league for some other stuff in our final thoughts too. So hope you guys have a great weekend ahead with a lot of the fun stuff coming up in the sports. We will get to you guys kind of next week and get through everything that we talked about on our show for tonight. So without further ado here, my co-host here, Isaiah Leon. This has Ben Cruz signing off for tonight's program. And giving you guys the outro here to conclude tonight's show. We will see you guys next time.
Purdy out of the shotgun, drops a couple of steps, going to take a deep shot. The Brandon Ayuk, it's deflected and caught.
Cousins, first read taken away. Left side, he throws. Wide open pitch. From being able to make a play on that football. That's where we're so good last year in the red zone. Nix evades the run. Nix the fake. Another fake, and he spins into the end zone.
They're going to get a free play. Rodgers is the master at it, and a touchdown by Lazard. Jones on the fake. Pressure coming, and he's sacked by Parsons.
God, the corner.
Open man Hudson. The throw caught. Hudson lost the ball. Looked like a touchdown. Instead, it's a turnover.
On the pocket. That's away from Chenal, who's trying to get after him for a second time, but the ball is thrown to the end zone, and it's caught.
On it to McCaffrey right up the middle, and a stiff arm. McCaffrey for 6. Duval.